It changed it for sure.
Yep.
Nice.
But my point.
All right, everyone, we're going to call the Planning Commission meeting to order here, and I'll ask you to all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Barb, if you'd be so kind to help us with the roll call, please.
Alderman Tim Eicher,
Here.
Commissioner Cahalan,
Like Van Halen.
Good memory.
Commissioner Hausman,
Here.
Commissioner Jasinski,
Here.
Commissioner Merrick,
Here.
Commissioner Schultz,
Here.
Commissioner Weiler,
Here.
Kent Atwell, Mayor.
Present. Great, thank you very much. Okay, next item, number 4, the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Oh,
Tim and Laura.
So I'm just going to quickly ask, Barb's mostly in charge of it, so if you guys could maybe announce the first and second, while she's getting used to voices and stuff, it would be helpful.
We can't hear you now.
Sure.
Mostly directed at them.
we're going to say our names when we make the motion to help Barb out.
Thank you.
All right, so who was the first?
Tim.
Tim, and who was the second?
Laura.
Laura.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, we'll move on to number 5, public hearing. Public hearing number 1, topic, zoning code text amendment, event facility conditional use. Applicant Whitney Schneider. Matter, amend section 52-142 of the zoning code to include language that provides for an event facility conditional use permit in agricultural district subject to conditions. Is there anybody that would like to speak to public hearing number 1? Public hearing number 1. Anybody like to speak to public hearing number 1? Come on up. Yep, you're the only one with your hand up.
Tag.
I thought you knew my name, so I was surprised you didn't say Susie. I'm Susie Thompson. It's SUSIE, 700 Milwaukee Street. It's really fun to see some of the changes that are coming up, and I like a lot of things that are developing from previous meetings. So seeing what Whitney and Eric have presented before, there were quite a few changes. There were some questions I had about what's coming up on this. Number 7 under the list for the public hearing, it was talking about liquor licenses should be obtained from the city, and I thought we didn't have any liquor licenses left unless they already have one. So that was one question I had. On number 14 talks about outdoor fires, and I was just shocked. Quite honestly, I get very concerned when people have outdoor fires. If they're not going to live on the property and somebody else is managing it, as a safety feature, I don't think outdoor fires should be allowed. Number 17 was talking about complimentary services not open to the general public with potential customers for the events facility on or off site. At a previous meeting, Whitney had talked about letting, like the photographer or makeup person who's doing somebody else's event somewhere else. It's not an event, but it's one of their preferred people. So I wanted to know if they were going to address that. In a letter, Whitney talked about an Airbnb, so I wanted to know, is an Airbnb going to be allowed? And what would that entail? So that's it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for the comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to public hearing number 1? Seeing none, public hearing number 1 is now closed. Now we will, let's see, citizens' comments on items other than the public hearing. Sir, is there anybody here that would like to speak to anything that's on the agenda tonight? Sir, come on up.
My name is Ralph Gerber, 3707 Campbell Trace. I'm going to speak a little bit about the change in the land use plan in the northeast quadrant of the city. Specifically, I'm going to speak of the area north of the Bark River. I've spoken to you before about this property, about this area. At that time, I talked about how you should not eliminate residential as a possibility. You have done that. In this proposal now, you have done that, and I appreciate it. Thank you. This time I'm going to talk a little bit about how this personally affects me. I'm going to make it a little more personal this time because as I think about this, it really does create a problem. We have 6 acres of land with our house in the very southeast section of the area that's designated to be commercial. We've lived there for 37 years. In that 37 years, we have put a lot of sweat equity and literally hundreds of thousands of dollars into updating and modernizing our residence. It is a beautiful property with very well landscaped. I was in the landscape nursery business my whole life, so it's very well landscaped. It's a really nice property. I'm 69 years old now, and it's time for me to downsize. It's time to move on. So actually, we're thinking of putting this property up for sale next summer. So I started thinking, what are we going to do? Who's going to buy this? Who's going to buy this? It's 6 acres. It's a unique situation because there's only really about 3.5 acres that's usable. 2.5 acres are marshland conservancy. So we have 3.5 acres. It's a perfect place for a hobby farm. Absolutely perfect for someone to have a hobby farm. We had a container perennial nursery there for 35 years. We've since taken all that apart and planted grass seed. So it would be a perfect place for a hobby farm or for someone who just wants to be in some very secluded spot. We're very screened from Highway 83, a very secluded spot with wildlife, with acreage, where there aren't going to be things around you. It would be perfect for that. But then I got to thinking, what's going to happen when this prospective buyer looks at it and says, wait a minute, it's going to be a commercial industrial park all around me. I don't want to buy that. I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to pay for it. So that's just a scary thought to me. But then I got to thinking, okay, we can make it commercial or semi-commercial. It's a perfect spot for a small contractor. Absolutely perfect. We have an outbuilding that has heat and water, perfect shop. It would be like a contractor that would live in the home and then work out of the back of it. Just a small, maybe just one person, maybe 2 or 3. But then I read the restrictions that you're putting on there. That's not allowed. We can't do that. Okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do now? Maybe, since we are the only property along Campbell Trace that is contingent to Highway 83, that's visible from Highway 83. If you take the screening down, we are visible from Highway 83. All the other houses on Campbell Trace have a 200-foot wooden buffer between them and 83. Okay, we could put retail in there. That'd be a really good idea because it's visible. Can't do that. It's against the rules. Okay, what about a restaurant? A restaurant would be a great idea for that property. It's a unique property because it's not like I've heard mentioned, pan flat. It's not. It's flat. Then there's a steep grade down to another flat area, which, by the way, has the Delafield sewer interceptor running right through it, so you can't build on that. So maybe there's 2 acres that can be built on. That's it. Okay, what about a restaurant? There's a place down the road. There's an event place down the road that serves food and beverages several nights a week. Wait, that's against the rules. We can't do that. So what are we going to do? How are we going to sell this property like we want? How are we going to get all this money that we put into it out of it? That's a personal problem. That's what's going on in my head. I guess what I'm asking is that at least if you're going to make it commercial, which is the wrong thing to do, by the way, it really is a perfect area for residential. Delafield is a residential area. But if you're going to make it commercial, then at least don't put all these restrictions on so we can't even sell our property. The real irony is that the farm fields, the farmlands around me, the people that own those have no intention of developing them or selling them in the near future. So Delafield gets nothing out of this process. There is no increased revenue. Delafield gets absolutely nothing. But who loses? This guy. I lose. So if you go forward with this, just remember me. Think about me. And I don't usually do this kind of thing. I don't usually make it so personal, but it is a real problem for us, and it really, really upsets me, as you can obviously tell. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for the comments. Who'd like to be next? Who'd like to be next? Come on up. Nope, right there.
My name is Tracy, T-R-A-C-Y, MacDonald, M-A-C-D-O-N-A-L-D, and I live at 2831 Highway 83. Let me start by saying that my husband and I are in favor of rezoning our property to planned mixed use. As stated, we live on Highway 83, the first house north of Oakwood Church and south of the Bark River, with approximately 500 feet of frontage directly facing 83. We are going on 30 years of living on this 9-acre piece of land and raised our family of 3 children during this time. Purchasing our property back then, we knew that the farmland surrounding us would someday be developed. The Heartland Business Park across the street was not built, but developed quickly and now is fully developed. Times have changed, and we need to downsize, and would like to also sell our property. By not changing the zoning to include light commercial business for the properties bordering 83, and especially south of the Bark River, would keep us hostage to remaining or selling our property as residential. No one would want to live on our property as strictly residential because of the Heartland Business Park across the street, and when, and it will happen, Highway 83 is enlarged to 4 lanes. Someone might purchase our property and live in the house, thus opening the possibility for operating some sort of business using the conditional land use option. Others who have, for example, Gerber Nursery, Rustic Manor, and Becker Clay Works, all bordering 83. It seems like you would prefer an overall planned mixed-use option and not have individual conditional use permit requests, therefore piecemealing. Our property is no longer ideal for raising a family. Someone stated at a past meeting that they live on 83 and are currently raising a family. They live on Campbell Terrace Road, and that has a landscape berm or section of land of at least 200 feet wide, buffering them from 83. In fact, you can hardly see most of the houses on Campbell Terrace from 83. Just think how their minds might change once 83 is widened to 4 lanes and that buffer land is reduced immensely. You have Rustic Manor, who now has a family and would like to move to a home better served to raise their family. They have created a beautiful open space venue having hundreds of visitors utilizing hotels, restaurants, and shops, therefore spending dollars and adding to Delafield's economy. Maybe trying to rezone the whole area north and south of 83 is too much to tackle at one time. Focus on the property south of 83 where there are only 2 residential houses, one being ours. Having the rezoning to reflect possible medium density residential to smaller density or all medium density, and then the sections of land bordering 83 to light commercial business. I encourage you, plan commissioners, and neighbors affected to come to our property to see for your own eyes. Sometimes measurements are hard to vision, but seeing it firsthand can help. Someone said they could see our house from Nagawicka Road or Hirschman Lane, but you cannot see our house or outbuildings because we have a section of woods at the back of our property that would remain as a buffer that anything that would be built. We also have a long driveway, and that could be an example of how a road going to the various buildings that would be constructed with only the entrance and exit from 83. No connector roads leading to residential sections that might be constructed behind our property. The Plan Commission has the final recommendation of what they would allow to be built. People are saying that you are not listening to what they're saying, or perhaps it's not what they want to hear. There has to be a compromise for all, part residential and part light commercial business park to raise the city of Delafield's tax base. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for the comments. Who'd like to be next? Anybody else? Going once, sir? Come on up.
I'm Dick DiAugustini. I live at 3727 Campbell Trace. And it is Trace, by the way, not Terrace. So a little bit of an oddity, but special nonetheless. So want to talk a little bit about that special and actually kind of counter to what was just said, but why would anybody want to live on Campbell Trace near Highway 83? It's not Highway 83. One of the reasons I've got a number of super close to Highway 16, 83, and I-94. I can get anywhere really fast. It's a great access to all kinds of major arteries. Within 5 minutes of where I live, I've got 6 grocery stores, 3 hardware stores, 5 pharmacies, urgent care, post office, 6 auto services, 12 restaurants. There are 4 private schools, different private schools, very desirable K-8 Lake Country School and Arrowhead High School. Why wouldn't you want to live where I live? That's the question. I have a 3-acre lot, and I love the 3-acre lot. I love the space. And looking around on Google Maps, you can see a number of very expensive houses that are on Highway 16, right off of Highway 16, right next to it. So it is done. It's also done off Highway 83. So not uncommon to want to live in an area that has all of those amenities, and larger lots is a really desirable thing. And it's something that Delafield has been known for and should keep. Later on, we're going to be looking at a bunch of pictures of different industrial parks. I was at one yesterday in Waunakee, Wisconsin. It was a horrible industrial park. The ones that you guys have picked and are using as examples are what I would call very good industrial parks. So the first one, I want to talk a little bit about how the boundaries of these industrial parks are created, because all good industrial parks have boundaries. It's pretty simple. Gateway West, boundaries north is Capitol Drive, south is the railroad, east is Silver Spring, west is the swamp. West Wind, north is the railroad, south is Watertown Road, east is Highway F, west is Highway 164. Gießen, north is Swamp, south is North Shore Road, east is Highway 83, west is Cottonwood. So let's talk about the north area now. So the north area, you've got, you divided the plots into north and south of the Bark River. North of the Bark River, you have on the north side of the railroad, and you have on the south side of the river. 2 great boundaries. On the east side, you have the Morris residence, the Topping residence, the Stoltz residence, the Deal residence, the Artrip residence, the DiAugustini residence, the Yannicki residence, the Gerber residence. On the west side, you have the Pelican residence, the Gorky residence, the Matsky residence, the Glassner residence, the Steffner residence, the Maynor residence, the Johnson residence. Do you guys see any difference in the two? In what you guys are showing as good industrial parks versus what this property is now? It's completely different. These are residential on both sides of it, sandwiching it. And you want to put an industrial park in the middle of that? It doesn't make any sense. That's not a good industrial park. One other thing that we need to think about with the difference in the revenue that we could gain from residential versus business is that residential, we're looking at, and by the way, your figures on your sheet are wrong. You've got it listed at 20,000 for residential. It should be like 5. So your number is wrong. It should be 3%. So the math wasn't done right between the beginning and the end of that line. But even at 3%, we're talking about plus 3%, not minus. We can't act like this is going to cost us money. It's going to be In addition to the budget for Delafield, it's not going to be a loss. It's going to be a plus. It's just maybe not going to be a big of a plus as an industrial park. So I would ask that you make sure that you consider those things in your minds and keep Delafield Delafield.
Thank you very much for the comments. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Come on up.
I'll get to this, get to that fact. I handed out a copy of the floodplain map, and that's what I'm sending through. I've got some extras if anybody else wants to see it. I'm Susie Thompson, 700 Milwaukee Street. I do want to talk about Highway 83 second, but first of all, I wanted to say Miller Marriott presented the most wonderful, informational reports on wells, and I was really extremely pleased when I read it. I have to tell you, I just burst out smiling. I learned more in a couple hours of reading the information on wells, and that was basically starting on page 63 of your packet. Wells and reports than I've ever learned in real estate. So that was beautifully done. Also, I wanted to say, I didn't realize that we had an open spring on St. John's property, and it's behind the old tennis court if you go around the corner. There's a orange barrel that's whatever size those barrels are, 4 foot by 3 foot, and the spring is coming out of the ground. There's a sunken piece of asphalt about 3 foot diameter, and the water has created a ditch 18 inches wide and 12 to 14 inches deep across that gravel road Spanier. So I was well impressed. I didn't know that, and I drove through there with my slingshot this summer, and I would never drive through an open ditch like that. It's very obvious. So sprouting water. So for people who are worried about water, I think we have a lot of water, and that's elevated. So anyway, beautifully done, Chris Miller. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the floodplain map that I gave to you. I do want to compliment, I like the progression of the maps as they have been presented for Highway 83. The first, what I call the first proposed map, it was not well received by the public. The second proposed map, the last one, there were changes, and north of the river and south of the river, from that to what was put in tonight is much, much more interesting. But the one thing that it seems that we're missing is that on the east side of the road, Heartland has noted that is the Heartland Ice Age Marsh. We don't refer to it on our side of the street, and a lot of people have made comments on that in the past. We should have something talking about a hiking path, and Delafield's all about hiking and getting people around. We should have something that points out and asks the developers to contribute toward a pathway going through that marsh area so people can walk with their dogs or ride with their bikes, and it should be a good connecting spot. When we talk about limited senior living and limited business or senior living area along 83, the idea of it and the north-south was something that I've spoken to many people who were hoping to see it would be more of a north-south division, but some of the comments that were brought in earlier tonight would be nice to see worked into the plan, and perhaps it doesn't need to be that many acres. I still have concerns based on my experience of seeing businesses move out of buildings when they get to be 20 years old because they don't want to spend the money. I was researching that throughout the state, as a realtor, I can still look, I'm still licensed for 2 more weeks. Buildings, when they get to be 20 years old, their value goes down dramatically. Nobody wants to spend the money on the new roofing, and they don't want to spend the maintenance. So they're going to move on to something else. And I'm afraid we're going to have a wasteland here in 20 to 30 years for the commercial buildings that are going up. So it might look good right now. It might sound good to us to get the additional money, but I don't think that the additional money we're going to get will offset what we're doing to the city. So please do reconsider that. But we're going in a good direction. It's nice to see that people are being heard and we're making some adjustments. So good job on the colors too. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. All right, anybody else? Going once, going twice. Citizens' comments are now closed. Okay, we're moving on to item number 7, unfinished business A. Applicant Whitney Schneider, applicant seeks a text amendment to section 52-142 of the zoning code to allow for an event facility conditional use permit in the agricultural district, subject to conditions. Welcome back yet again.
Thank you. Whitney Schneider, 3115 State Road 83.
Amy, you want to kick us off, please?
Sure. Okay, so the applicant has requested to create an event facility conditional use so that they don't have to consider it an accessory use to another otherwise permitted use or conditional use. So currently they happen to operate an event facility. We've talked about this for a couple of months, and it's a part of a bed and breakfast conditional use, and a bed and breakfast requires the owners to live on the property. So rather, they would like the event facility to be the principal use on the property, which, you know, it is a very significant use out there already. So what other municipalities have done is they either create, some municipalities have unspecified conditional uses for those types of uses that aren't otherwise identified, or event facilities have become very popular, and so communities are starting to implement an event facility conditional use. So that is what we have here. We went through all of these conditions last month. I was asked to make a few changes, which I've done a couple, and then there was a revision posted as part of the packet, not part of the packet, but as part of the public hearing website notification. There were a few changes from that after talking to the city attorney who cleaned up some of the language. So the material items I'll just go over that have changed since last meeting would be the first one where we talked about how event facilities have to have access off of a county or state highway, but that if there's an existing facility, they can be accessed off of another road if it fronts on a county or state highway. So after talking to the city attorney, she thought it would just be simplified if we removed access as an issue and stated that the property must have frontage on a county or state highway of no less than the minimum lot width of the applicable agricultural zoning district, which is currently 200 feet. So it's not so much the access that's the issue, it's the making sure that there's an appropriate amount of frontage. And then the other change that was material was number 17, which is the last condition. So the applicant at last month's meeting talked about what kind of commercial use she would like to have, and the Plan Commission, debated what is appropriate for the site. And partly it's not wanting to jump ahead of the larger 83 corridor project, not knowing what uses would ultimately be accepted. And so although they would like to have commercial uses in addition to the event facility, what I heard from the Plan Commission anyway, and what the city attorney helped draft, was that, I'm just going to read it and then I'll just kind of explain the intent. Complementary uses must be approved as part of the conditional use and must be compatible with the event facility. Complementary uses may include, but are not limited to, uses and buildings that accommodate farming, residential, and just so you know, whenever somebody comes in for a CU, they need to submit their specific details, and I think that can be a little confusing. This is just the text amendment. Then even Rustic Manor, they're going to have to come back next month or the month after and ask for their CU to be amended or just completely rewritten. So agricultural and residential, as part of the residential, if somebody proposed an Airbnb or a rental or whatever, that would all be part of the review of that conditional use. And so with residential, it says which complies with the zoning district standards, so they can't just apply for anything. Or limited service associated with the event facility, such as a beauty salon or photographer. Service operations shall not be open to the general public, but rather be limited to serving potential customers of the event facility for preparation of an event taking place on or off-site. So last month, Whitney talked about how, well, maybe not everybody is going to use her facility, and these people may want to have customers that will use some other event. And so I think you guys were okay with that, but didn't want it to just be open to the public generally. So that's the intent there. And again, once she decides what she wants to do, she's going to have to come in and amend her CU, and then we can be very specific in the conditions of her particular conditional use. Any comments, Whitney, that you would like to address?
Not specific to what we have here. I know just addressing the citizen comments for that came in earlier. We do already hold a liquor license with the city of Delafield, so we do already have that obtained and had that for the last 9 years. The fire pit that we do have on site was approved, I'm not sure how many years ago, It's a gas fire pit. And I will say that we're probably the stingiest operators of that. It's probably on, our management's the only one who's allowed to turn it on. So even our event staff, bartenders, no one's allowed to touch it except for management, which we have 2 to 3 at a time. And with kids, people drinking, I will say it's probably on 40% of the time. And it only turns on at dusk, if it is even permitted at that point. For wind and just trust, I guess, of the group that's there. It really isn't on that frequently, I would say. It's really more of a selling point than anything. And no cooking or anything, like no one can make s'mores or anything like that on it. It's really just for leisure. So I just wanted to address those two.
Before you go on with questions, I think at the last meeting, a question came up of where else would this potentially be allowed. So I scanned the city, and based on the conditions that are in the draft document, there's 2 areas that could potentially also become event facilities. Well, 3. The Highway 83, right now there's several properties that are zoned A1 agricultural. So there could be another event facility north of the river or on another adjacent property, whatever. And then also the Binkowski property, which is, so this is kind of interesting. I don't know why the screen just turned blue, but the Binkowski property is north of Hawthorne Farm. If you can see my scanner, I might have to turn this off and go back in. So it abuts a state highway, or Highway 16, right in this corner, just in a corner of the property technically, because the railroad tracks in that area are part of 16. So that would potentially qualify. And then also there's properties south of, one property south of C and 94, not the medical complex, but south of that, there's one of those properties is 10 acres and meets the criteria. So if you want to consider event barns in those particular areas, that would be fine. If not, and you want to be more restrictive, one item you may want to consider is the condition, we talked about this last month, that requires public sewer to also require public water. Neither of those properties have easy access to public water. So just something, we could add that before it goes to Common Council for ordinance consideration.
Number 11 says that it has to be public.
Public sewer, but doesn't
You're
say.
talking water also?
Yes.
Okay.
If you add the water, you
that
eliminate the other
changes
2
things a lot.
properties.
And one.
They don't have water.
one reason to require water potentially, I mean, there are event facilities that do not have water, or sewer, because some of them are truly on agricultural lands. And they have to have portalets and bring in water, bring in all this stuff. But if it's a significant facility, it does need to be sprinklered, and that is another reason to encourage water supply.
Questions? Motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to section 52-142, section 29, as proposed and discussed.
That was Ed?
Ed, sorry.
Dan will second.
All right, discussion.
Did you consider adding water to the number 11 as a part of that motion?
I'll amend my motion to add water.
I'll accept that. Second that.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
And to piggyback on your comment about the fire pit, we've got a really comprehensive outdoor burning ordinance. So just complying with that, everybody's fine. So you can look that up.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Great.
Thank you.
On to the next step. Okay, we are moving down to number 8, new business. 8A, DELC 0797058, 600 Milwaukee Street. Owner Herbert Burgermeister Jr., care of Matt Kowalski. Applicant Matt Kowalski. Applicant requests approval of permanent signage for Kowalski Kitchens and Bath. Is the applicant here? Come on up.
Just a correction while she's walking up. The staff report reflects the wrong address, so it's 600 Milwaukee Street, not 1600.
Can you give us your name and address?
Jola Fronczak, 600 Milwaukee Street. I'm working for Kowalski Kitchen and Bath. Nice to see you again. JOLAFRONCZAK.
All right, Amy, what can you tell us?
Okay, so you all approved a site plan amendment for them to remodel the exterior, which appears to be just about complete. So now they're trying to get approval for their signage, and each side of the building will have, I guess, 2 signs. One on the canopy at the entrance. It's on the corner of 2 streets, so it'll be on the canopy of each side. And then a very similar sign sort of at the end caps on each side of the building. So typically, I would say that you usually have one wall-mounted sign advertising a business on a property. The Kowalski did have 2 signs already on one side, the Milwaukee Street side.
Yes, we did.
Not Genesee Street. So on Genesee Street, there's this black area. Let me go down. That they would like to add signage to. Can you guys see the?
Yeah.
And then this sign, I think, is on the is it on the secondary building?
Yeah, it's exactly where it was before. And it's the same size, only it's like the update of our logo. Because
And then-
we used to have the sign there.
And then they have, maybe this picture is the best one.
Yeah.
The main windows that are at that corner, they have the signage up with like a kitchen.
It's only
design.
the pictures. It's not kind of our
It's
logo.
attached to the
It's
glass?
yes, it's attached to the glass, yes. It's like the film. kind of film, and the logo is going to be on an awning. Naturally, the awning is gonna have a logo like used to have. It's not much change besides, like I say, the update of update of the logo, and only the Genesis Street we are asking for like the one more signage on the Genesis Street, because on the awning is an angle, so it's not so visible, and this one is like the more visible from the street directly.
So in those window signs, normally the city's ordinance only allows them to cover 25% of the window area, but those were also there previously too, right?
Yes, it was. We only changed the windows, so they are new, fresh windows. It's like actually here is any update beside the new film is gonna be put in.
So I'm leaving it up to your discretion.
So on the Genesee side,
Yes.
the proposal has a sign on the awning as well as on the wall. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
And it's the same sign 12 feet apart from itself. I would just from a, that's a little redundant, a little busy. I'd suggest picking one or the other. I mean, maybe you want it on the wall and not on the awning.
No, the reason why we're asking on a Genesis Street on a wall, because you on a picture here it's really visible, but like I said, this is gonna be angled,
Right.
so actually these letters are not gonna be so visible on the awning.
So why put them there? I'm suggesting the wall might be a perfect spot, and I understand from the
It's
from the
because
from
we
the
want to
from the
make
coming.
like in both. I'm sorry, because in like both sides we want to make the letters on the awning, so it's not like the big white, big black. I don't know, big black spot that doesn't have, and it's like the letters can make a little.
I get it. I'm just suggesting. This is opinion based, right?
Okay, no.
And so I understand. I understand
agree.
the sign on the awning coming from, that's facing north, because you've got a hill exposure coming in from St. John's. I mean, you're going to see your building and you're going to see that sign, even with
Yes.
the angle. There's just not a lot of people trying to find you that are going to be in front of the coffee shop and, coming from the west on that street. So I just think I think the most bang for your buck as far as a sign would be on the black wall itself, because you're going to get that from all the traffic going by both directions. So that's my opinion. The other thing I'll weigh in on is I did notice driving in today that, and now it's dark so early, you don't have those screens on the films on the windows.
No, not
And
yet. No, yet.
And I think it looks better with them. I mean, it looks like.
Okay, we
I mean, it's
agree,
actually a little
and
bit of
this
a
is
privacy.
yes, and this is we do not want the film in the future, but because we don't have so much place in our showroom, is the interior is not updated yet. We are going to plan this in the next year or two. And we got a lot of our samples on the windows. So it's look, I don't want to say like ugly, but it's kind of ugly when you see the clear window and samples like sticking out.
So you're gonna have the film now, or you want to
Yes,
put it up
we're
and
gonna
take it down?
Yeah, in the future we are planning to update the windows, that it's gonna be benches and it's gonna be no samples there. And then we're gonna take the film, because we all agree in a company that we don't like these films as like you don't, but we don't want to like people see all the samples sticking out. That's why.
From what you have, but I agree, what you have in there right now, I think this film would be better. Just based on how it looks.
No, I know, and this film is gonna be new, so it's gonna be better. And I agree absolutely with you. We try to, we really try to do not this, but because of we don't have a place to put the samples, and the samples are laying down exactly and sticking out, and it really doesn't look nice. That's
So-
why we don't want.
So based
people
on
to
that
see.
being in flux, what would your thoughts be about having on the Genesee side, just having the sign on the wall and not on the awning as you move forward and seeing how that works out for you? And when you update it in the future, you can maybe alter it, or what do you does that make sense?
Can I just throw something out there too? Because I noted it, when you look at these pictures, it looks like a lot of words and it's duplicated. I mean, could you put words on one sign and the logo on another one to break up the white and black a little bit, but have them do different things?
I can ask. Actually, it was the company who is doing this for us, and this is how they did. We didn't design the logos, and it's like this. They have a bigger experience with the logos and the signage, so this is what they propose for us, and just like say that's our logo is like complete when it's the letter and the sign logo together. This is how they say that we shouldn't separate them. I guess this is marketing reason, so that's why we made it the same logo and we repeat like the 4 times. Yeah, I agree, but on the awning it's not gonna be so big like you actually, and it's not gonna be so visible like you see on this picture because this is like the flat picture. So,
I'm going to agree. I agree with Tim on the one sign on Genesee.
Okay.
But I'll disagree with Tim on that film. I think it looks cheap, and I think it's being used, like you said. It's really negating the reason we want glass and windows. It's more or less like a wall to cover up what you have behind it. So I'm happy to hear that someday that'll come down.
No,
if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yes, we do not want, but for now we like kind of want to put the film. But yes, we're planning to update interior as well, like exterior. And when we do this, we can be able to take a film, and it's gonna be nice look. I agree, because I really don't like this film as either. Really, I don't. Believe me.
That's good to hear then.
Yeah. Okay, I can let know
I was just going to make the comments. I agree with Tim as well. But I hope there's better contrast to see these signs than there are in these pictures, because frankly, I can barely even find them in the pictures. I don't know. I hope they work for you better in real life than they do in these pictures.
No, I didn't make when I would make this.
It's white on black, Kent. What are you looking for contrast?
Wasn't there one in the right, in the picture on the right, on that gray wall? Is that what you guys are pointing to?
That's where they're going to put one.
Yeah, it's down
Right
there.
now it's shown in there.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even see that picture.
See, like that elevation without the piece on the awning, I think is
Yeah, I like that
is a
too.
nicer. It's just a nicer look.
It's too busy looking.
It's an attractive business. It's an attractive building, and you run the risk of having it look like a NASCAR.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good analogy.
Okay.
And people will notice, I think, that sign more because that's a stop sign there.
Okay. Okay, we're not gonna do that on a Genesee Street.
All right.
Motion?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the signage minus the Kowalski logo on the Genesee awning, Genesee Street elevation awning.
I'll second.
So Tim
Laura?
made the motion, Laura seconded. Any discussion?
Well, you said, Tim, just eliminating the logo on the awning. You mean the whole sign, right? Where it's just
The sign. Yeah.
The sign
She described
on
the
the
logo
Genesee
as
Street,
one,
yes.
the whole
Okay,
thing.
I get
It's
that.
gonna be
Not
only
separate.
on
As long as
the-
it's
on the awning,
understood.
yeah.
Yeah, no lettering on that. It's
Because they
just
have the little
as pictured.
logo, I thought.
So you want to say signage and logo?
The sign. Yeah, no signage on the Genesee side awning.
There.
Signage on the Milwaukee Street and on the awning.
On Milwaukee Street is fine.
Yeah, facing Milwaukee Street is
He's-
fine.
He's saying signage on Genesee is limited to the wall, not the awning.
Yeah, but awning is gonna be on the Genesee and
Milwaukee.
only from the Milwaukee Street
On the awning, correct.
on the awning. From the Genesee Street on the wall.
Yep.
Genesee's on the wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Laura, you're okay with those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Barb, we're going to kind of put you on the spot here, and we want to make sure that what they're said is actually what we have written down. So
Yeah.
let's, why don't you read what you have, and if there's a correction, Tim will state what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, I have the motion by Iker with the signage on Milwaukee Street and Genesee on the wall.
Awning and wall on Milwaukee Street and wall on Genesee Street. And the windows.
And Milwaukee Street. And
I would actually just say approval without any signage on the awning on Genesee Street.
Correct.
Is really how you
Yeah.
said it.
Right.
So back all that out
cleans
and
it
type
up.
that.
That cleans it up.
Approval,
without any signage on the awning on Genesee.
yes.
It looks very nice so far. I drive past it all the time.
So are we good?
Yeah.
As presented, okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to 8B, DLC 0782001-001, 1807 Nagawicca Road, owner, Walker's Point Property LLC, applicant Growth Design Group Incorporated, applicant seeks site plan and appearance approval to make modifications to the site plan previously approved. Is the applicant here? Come on up, please. Give us your name and address.
Hi, I'm Jackie Wolke with Growth Design Group. That's WOLKE. And address is N58 W61 Columbia Road, Cedarburg.
Great. Amy, you want to give us an overview, please?
Okay, so you all have revised plans in front of you, and they're probably going to be easier to read anyway compared to what's on the screen. So I'll kind of go through it, but I am going to ask that the applicant, Jackie, kind of walk us through it too, because we just received these changes. So the Plan Commission has approved site plan and appearance reviewed for significant remodeling of the building and improvements to the site plan.
The old 7 Cs, just
old
so
7
we're all
Cs.
clear on what we're talking about.
So that project is underway, but the applicant is coming back to make a few changes. So one of them is to change the parking lot lighting. So I'll try to put it up on the screen, but you might want to look at your plan. So they are proposing 14, so the original plan did not have any of these poles in the parking lot. They are proposing 14 pole lights. They are pretty low key. They're like 10 to 12 feet in height. They do downcast. There's zero trespass on adjacent properties, and they meet the dark sky requirements. I think they're just meant to illuminate that parking lot a little bit so that it's not so dark. And then they are adding there are some modifications to the lighting around the building with some additional lantern lighting. And then, I don't know, do you want to explain any other changes?
It was really mainly the site in the parking lot, the lighting in the parking lot that we were coming back for. I think the lighting on the building, we were mainly replacing the fixtures in the locations that they were previously.
You're changing the lighting on the building, or you're not?
We are. It's going to be new fixtures on the building. And there's going to also be...
Are they all downward lighting on the new building?
Yes.
Yeah, and they're mostly like lantern style,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're...
I thought those were in the parking lot. Did I misunderstand?
It's
They're on
supposed to look
posts
the
in the
same.
parking lot, not the tall ones that we just
Yeah.
discussed.
No.
Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not the tall ones. We're
Right.
taking the tall ones down.
But you're putting up new tall ones with downward lighting. Is that correct?
Right. I think
Okay.
the existing poles were about 20 feet tall, and the poles we're proposing with the lighting housing on the pole is 12 feet to the top.
Okay. And
And
so
then-
where are the lanterns
Well,
located?
here, I'll just show you. So I think what you're talking about.
That's what I saw in the,
These right here, those, I believe, are lining up at the main entrance as you go into the site.
Yep. So those are
walkway?
actually, so that goes down the main aisleway of the parking
Okay.
lot, and they're 4 feet high. And it's not going to be a lantern, it's actually going to look more like this heavy duty. So it's still pointing the light down. It's really just supposed to light that aisleway for people to be able to drive safely up. So the post will look similar to that, where it'll, the wood post with, the two, with the horizontal, but we're mounting this other fixture.
so the lanterns are removed.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it won't have that concrete base. It'll just be the post down to grade. We might bring it up a little bit just so that it's not touching the landscaping around, but
They're pretty low.
And then the 12-foot poles, that has the same light fixture on it?
that is actually, it's called Beacon. It's this one here.
On the 12-foot poles?
Yes. And so the fixture, the LED fixture is actually mounted up higher in the cap. So the cap actually helps direct that light down.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
And where it is located along the northern edge of the property, of the parking lot, there is an opaque glass that's going to be placed so that there is no light spillover into the neighbor.
Okay, and does your photometric plan that you have here, does that incorporate both lights, groups
Yep.
of lights we just spoke to?
Yep.
And bring 0 to all the property lines? Okay.
Yes, correct.
And if you don't mind, and so what are you changing on the building?
The building fixtures are going to look similar to the Beacon fixture.
I'm sorry, can you point to, is that the beacon?
Yeah, they're going to be similar.
Oh,
to
like
this.
those, okay.
I think
Where are
those
these?
fixtures were used because
Those
when
are
they did
removed.
photometrics, they couldn't find the exact fixture, but it's similar to the ones that are actually going on the building, from what I understand.
So
Those-
these aren't really on the property at all?
No.
They're just similar to what we're proposing. It's what they could find that worked in their photometric program to get the correct
Because
amount
you're burying
of
the
light.
light in the cap, those don't look like they do that.
Yeah, so this one actually has the light is up in the cap,
Yeah.
so that it directs the light down.
Okay.
And I do have well, I guess you don't even have this, because when I wrote this report, there were quite a few pending items. But with these revised plans, I'm just asking that the planner, myself, have the opportunity to approve and review the lighting and landscaping. They do need to submit a table that ensures compliance with certain illumination standards in the code. And probably the most important one is to ensure that there isn't trespass on the properties, or only a certain amount, and they don't have any, and they're allowed 0.5-foot candles. So that's really important, and it sounds like from the applicant, the lighting situation will be much more pleasant than what has been out there with some pretty significant, like, floodlight type
Right, yeah.
feel.
And then something I brought up in the past is, all downward lighting on the lake side as well. Are you aware of any changes that would deviate from that original request?
No,
Okay.
we're keeping lighting that was on the building the same, and we're not adding any additional lighting. I think it's actually step lighting in the garden walls. We have garden walls.
Sure.
And there's step lighting that we're putting on the wall that's going to direct the light down.
Sure.
And I think that's,
Yeah,
this
that's
fixture?
that. Yeah, so that is only going to be towards the building. It's, there might be, I think, a spot where there's an existing patio. We're rebuilding the wall. They might, I think they're adding lights on that wall. Facing the lake. But again, it's low step lighting that is going towards the ground.
I'm good on lighting.
Any other questions on lighting? Okay, then they are proposing a fence and mechanical enclosure area. So I will go to that here. Oops. I'm actually going to go to a different plan. So let me just show you a picture of the fence because that's on this page. So they'll have a cedar fence. They have this in other areas. It kind of matches the back of the dumpster enclosure too. So on that north property line, they are going to be proposing a mechanical enclosure. So you'll have like the dumpster enclosure area, and then you'll have part of the building, and then you'll have this long 8-foot tall fence, and then the rest of the building. The reason why they're proposing the fence, which does require approval because it will be about 2 feet from the lot line where they would otherwise normally have to meet the setback without plan commission approval. So this is a little bit blurry because I have it zoomed in so much, but this is the shape of the mechanical area, and they're going to have like 16 units, and they're in your plans. What are they, like air conditioning units? And
So condensing units, and then we also have makeup air units is taking it's the air for the hoods, the kitchen hoods that are going back in. So when the building was added on, I think pieces of it, some of it ended up on the north side, some ended up on the south side. So it's been kind of dispersed throughout the building. And there's also 2 units on a roof. There's a flat portion of the roof that was carved out for 2 rooftop units, but those units really don't have the proper clearances around them for someone to actually maintain the units. So it's a little dangerous for them to even be up there. We would have to make modifications for them to do that. And aside from that, the new equipment going in just wouldn't be able to fit on that little portion of the roof. So the corner of the property, the northeast corner of the property, that's kind of where a lot of our mechanicals already come in. We have main electrical panels coming in there. We have our fire protection, fire riser there. On the east side of the building is where the fire, where the fire protection actually comes into the building, and where the fire department would connect to the building if they needed to. So we're just trying to get everything into one area that we can put a fence around and put landscaping around to make it look nice for the neighbor to the north.
So with that, they are proposing some landscaping in the mechanical structure, and there's some noise associated with that, although should be somewhat minimal because the units are more residential grade. That's why there's so many. And then the landscaping goes over the lot line. The adjacent property owner to the north has approved the concept of the mechanicals and the landscaping. So I would just recommend, if you do approve this plan as is, that the owner be required to get an easement. And we can talk about it when you get closer to the motion, but an easement that addresses landscaping and long-term maintenance of that landscaping, because the owner could change at any time. And also the mechanicals and any noise associated with it, so that they don't come in the future and complain about the noise that they were aware of as part of putting in the mechanicals in. Any questions on this mechanical area?
There's a reference to the enclosure having some sort of noise abatement.
Yeah, so
I mean, how is it, is that possible?
It is possible, and we talked about that. That would be one option, is to require the noise abatement, or in this case, it's just interesting that adjacent owner has written a letter accepting the system in its place. So, I mean, I think you could do it either way or both. I believe in one of they did submit catalog cut sheets. One of those, there's two different size units in here. One of them is, has like 60-some decibels of noise at the location of the structure, of the equipment.
It is looking at the decibels of the different units, they are still within the average for basically normal conversation.
So when I look at the box that's on the screen, and I believe those are air conditioners in that rectangle area, is that then to the north lined with the described wood fencing, and then the landscaping is on the north side of that fencing?
Yeah, so the landscaping goes over the property line. And I think that's why we needed to come back to discuss this with you, is the fact that all the landscaping isn't able to fit on that north side without going over the property line.
So this black line is, this plan is a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then these are the number of units, those are sized, so
Wow.
16 units in that rectangle.
So it's just lighting in this?
No, and then they are proposing to keep a portion of a patio next to the pavilion. So this black area, am I showing the correct space? Or
Yes.
darker area, that it's part of a patio that was there that they were going to remove, and they would like to keep it in place.
So,
Go ahead.
Oh, the reason it looks different is originally we were going to remove it because there's actually a step. I think it's a 6-inch differential between the main pavilion patio and then this little piece of concrete. But then when we brought the restaurant operator on board, they didn't want to lose concrete for potential areas for seating, or they had thought it would be a nice area to set up for a wedding. So we are going to put decking down so that it's then a flush surface, so that there isn't a step anymore. So it makes it a little safer.
Is there a barrier fence, something around
Yes.
the edges?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we have a 3-foot fence, and there's also landscape barrier, so we're not over the 30 inches.
Okay.
So we've got the 3-foot railing in there.
So a couple of things with these proposals, if you don't have any more questions, I just want to point out a couple of things. So the landscaping on the north end of the fence is primarily, or all deciduous type plantings, mostly hydrangea, bushes, and plants. I would recommend that as a condition that the planner approve the lighting and landscaping plan, and that they propose some evergreen plants that are a little bit taller than, that can help screen that 8-foot tall fence. That's a pretty significant height. And then I do recommend that an easement be recorded on the adjacent property to the north that incorporates landscaping and fencing placement and maintenance, and acknowledgement of the mechanicals on the north side of the building and related noise. And then the easement should be reviewed and approved by the planner and include exhibits with the site plans and catalog cut sheets that were presented at the meeting tonight. And then another condition is that the site plan modifications be subject to engineer approval related to the increase of impervious surface. And then also, we just want to verify that the concrete area on the north side of the property doesn't drain onto the adjacent property to the north, that it's constructed so that it drains toward the lake, which might mean that it's really flat out here, so it might need a little concrete lip or something to keep it from going one direction, or it might need to be pitched so that it heads toward the lake.
Could they put a drain in that slab
Maybe,
and pipe it to the west?
probably.
Something to think about.
Right.
If that's a code, I'm not sure.
And then I would just add that the fire department shall review and approve the site plan because they have really tight access on both sides of the property. The south side has quite a bit of improvements, and then this side is now tight with this enclosure. They can't really get around the building unless they go on the adjacent property. All of them. What are there? Do you think there'll be any changes in the? Do you want to discuss it any further before I help prepare a motion? And I apologize. Some of these revisions came in last night, so we're.
So you came in at the last second. I'm still trying to process your list. Sorry, Amy.
Yeah.
So I'll start at number 1. You suggested evergreens at the fence line. Were evergreens not suggested because you wanted deciduous because they aren't going to grow into the fence? You get leaves in summer, so it's a better block. Winter, you don't care as much, or was there no logic there? Just decided to.
I think they were just trying to give it some color so that it wasn't just the painted fence.
Okay.
Because I think the hydrangea, there's whites, there's pinks, there's different coloring.
Okay. That's fine. Continue with your list, Amy. Sorry.
Well,
Did the person to the north review that landscape piece as well?
Yeah. So we ended up we showed them the plan, and then we also showed them images of the plantings when they were at their mature height.
Do you care about the evergreens or not?
No, I just want to see what their explanation was. I'm not
But
sure. I don't care.
we'd hate to make the recommendation, and then the neighbor says, well, I didn't want the evergreens.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want them, we can just leave planner approval of lighting and landscaping, but I won't require evergreens. So you tell me if you want them or not.
I don't feel that they're necessary with a fence. And the neighbor might like the blooming of flowers and that, like hydrangeas. Appearance-wise, it might appear better to them.
Okay, so my conditions, if there's no other comments, any other comments?
No.
Okay, so my recommendation would be recommend approval, subject to planner approval of lighting and landscaping plans. Do you have that? Okay, and then an easement be recorded on the adjacent property to the north that incorporates landscaping and fencing, placement and maintenance. Landscaping and fencing, placement and maintenance. And got it? And the acknowledgement of mechanicals on the north side of the building. And related noise. And the easement shall be reviewed and approved by the planner. And I think we can say, and include necessary exhibits. I can. And then the last condition would be subject to engineer approval of the increase in impervious surface.
Fire department.
Oh, and the review and approval of the fire department. Impervious surface.
Then review and approval of the fire department. Got it?
Then are you ready? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve based on the city planner's comments as presented here.
That's Ed.
And I add?
Second.
Second by Dan.
Mike.
Mike Osman.
Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
A little quiet, I know, but come on, Ken.
You all set? Okay. All right, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. Now we are on to C. DLC 0792074-439 St. John's Road, DLC 0792069, and DLC 0792078-411 St. John's Road, DLC 0792073, and DLC 0792060. Unknown addresses on Wisconsin Avenue and St. John's Road. Owner, Hendricks Commercial Properties LLC. Applicant, Chris Miller. Miller Marriott Construction. Applicant seeks up feedback and scheduling of a public hearing for a zoning amendment from the P1 Public and Semi-Public Use District to the R4 Single and Two-Family Residential District to accommodate a single-family residential development on property located between Wisconsin Avenue and St. John's Road. Amy, you want to give us an update, please?
Sure. Okay, so Miller Marriott is proposing a subdivision. You've seen renditions of their concept plan. The land use plan was recently amended from the institutional category to medium density, which was 4 units per acre. And now they need to rezone the property from the P1, which is public and semi-public use, to R4, which is single and two-family residential. They are proposing, so these, first of all, on this site plan that you see on the screen, lots A, B, and C, or the 3 lots north of Wisconsin Avenue, are already zoned appropriately. They are not part of the rezone request. So tonight, you're providing feedback, and then we would schedule a public hearing if all goes well for next month. So the applicant is proposing 28 lots now that the land use plan was amended to medium density residential. Originally, the application was high density and they had 34 lots. So they are taking out 6 lots as part of this revised request. They could actually have a few more lots, but they are intentionally trying to provide some variability and provide some lots that are a little bit wider in order to have some front entry garages, some side entry garages. And then they have a little additional space on the west side for stormwater management that will be provided in an outlot. And then instead of having their original plan had 1 open space area, so they are vacating 2 interior roads. Instead of having 1 open space area with the trail, they're going to have 2 trail connectors in between the lots. So as part of going through this land use plan amendment and rezone process, they did have a traffic impact analysis conducted. That analysis indicated that the development itself would not require or necessitate any changes to the intersections of the existing public roads. That analysis was reviewed and approved by our engineering staff, who agreed that it was appropriate. And then he also had well studies done by Guthrie and Fry, and then also from a hydrogeologist at RJN Environmental. Both companies indicated that drawdowns would be very negligible as a result of the installation of wells. Then SEH staff did review that analysis and also agreed that the drawdowns should be negligible, but that the impacts, those neighbors that have deeper wells, the impacts would be far less significant than the shallower wells. It is worth noting that some of the wells in this area are extremely shallow, to 25 to 35 feet, which those are at risk of becoming dry regardless of this development. So I bring that up in the event that would occur. That is just a really shallow well that probably wouldn't be approved as a current proposed well. And the report does also state that the existing or new water appropriation for any municipal, industrial, institutional, or irrigation water supplies would have a much greater impact than the residential wells that are being proposed. And so when SEH did their analysis of the other reports, they did look at the development of the golf course and this property together. So with that, we've talked about this property quite a bit, so I would just ask that you provide your feedback, and if all is good, schedule a public hearing for December 21st.
Question on the water. There was reference in there a couple times, you just brought it up. The reference to water irrigation systems, that was for farming or for golf course use. It was not for watering lawns. Is that right?
I would have to go back and review that, but I do think they were considering the types of uses that were currently out there.
That's how I took it, Tim,
Yeah,
because they were
yeah.
talking about industrial uses
yeah,
and then
yeah.
irrigation. I think that was for like a large golf course, farming.
Jim, to know if the water reports consider with the gallons per day per household or per person include a calculation for lawn watering? Do you know that?
In the one that we provided?
Yeah.
75 gallons per day per person, yeah, I don't know if that
It was
means.
my understanding that it does not.
Okay.
In the conclusion, it says here that prolonged pumping, especially during droughts, has the potential to cause temporary interference under certain conditions. And that the actual cones and depression of each pumping well are related to the hydraulic conductivity and storageability of the aquifer, which are unknown at this time. That doesn't seem real assuring to me when it comes to, because we have had droughts. I know that I have a well that's 80 feet deep, and we had a drought, and I had to have the pump removed, and it dropped 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So these people who have shallow wells, or even some of the others, could actually experience some problems. I have followed water in Wisconsin for over 25 years, and I know that the Water Institute says we're drawing it out faster than it's going in, that in one lifetime, only 1 inch of water reaches the aquifer per person. So it's really difficult for me because I have followed this water issue for so long. I'm really concerned about people turning on the tap and there's no water. So by adding, to me, so much more housing to this whole area, even the golf course, is a real concern for me.
So I think, Laura, so I can understand, because it does talk about the shallow wells in the neighborhood, because they are very shallow, that there may be, that there's greater impacts of those than deeper wells. But I think one of the really important conclusions is that the existing uses or allowable uses have a much more significant impact than these residential properties would. So the golf course and institutional, if this same acreage was used for institutional purposes, it would have a much more significant impact, which is what is permitted by right currently.
Did you read the other geologist's report, or the hydrologist's report in here? Where he says that, in my experience, a drawdown of this range of magnitude could probably not even be measured within a distance of 10 or 20 feet. I mean, that's what they kept, I mean, there's several instances in here where he's talking about proximity to to existing wells, to new wells, and what the impact of the new wells would have on these, and the distances. I mean, so they express some uncertainty, get a 100% guarantee answer out of any engineer and accountant, and you're going to meet one that I haven't met.
Right, I mean, that's where all of those ands, ifs, or buts come
But
from.
both recommendations are very strong in saying this is, the word negligible is used several times in here.
And just a macro comment is, remember, the city of Waukesha is going to be starting to get their water from Lake Michigan. So their usage into the aquifer is going to drop substantially. right? So any historical data needs to be updated to reflect the city of Waukesha pulling from Lake Michigan, which I doubt
I
that
could say a lot,
information's
but I won't.
been
Because I've
put
been
in there
following
yet.
this.
Just as a macro comment.
Yeah. The thing I'm worried about is the people presently with the shallow wells. If this goes in, it's going to affect them. And what proactive thing can they do to resolve this issue for those that have these shallow wells and that will have problems?
People that have what I call a point well, that's what they call them on the lake, these 20 and 30-foot wells. You can't even get them put in. I mean, I'm not the expert on this topic, but I believe those, I've tried to get one put in at one of my properties, and I'm told I can't find a contractor to even do it because apparently, again, not the expert, but they won't do it. And I assume there must be a rule against why they don't do it.
Well, I think because times have changed. I know that Dousman, over 100 years ago, that's what, because they were very wet over there, that's what most of them had were these point wells. And because of all the development that we're seeing a drop in water underground, we're actually standing on it. There has been a drop. They said in 50 years, the aquifer is going to drop 200 feet. That's from the Water Institute. So I think we have to be conscionable when we do all this development. How in the future our water usage and how we're going to be using water, and maybe there should be some restrictions on. I go crazy when I see people water their lawn. It's grass, folks. Don't water it. It'll come back. I'm really concerned, especially when I see a Conemaugh building up like Waukesha, and we're squeezed in the middle here. So, I'm just very concerned. The other issue I have is taking out streets. I do not like taking out streets. I think it ruins the conductivity. It ruins the grid that you have. You have a really nice grid there with these side streets. I have been to what I consider Wisconsin's best planned city, and they all work on a grid. So I'm not crazy about taking out side streets. I've been over there, I've been half a dozen times, different times of the day, on different days, and I see people walking on them, I see people biking on them, I see people with strollers on them, that I really, and just to get around within the subdivision, I find that side streets are important for fire, for police. I mean, to me, they're just really important. I hate to take them out.
So right now, the people walk on the road, and
He's putting in a sidewalk
these are all
around the entire
a
perimeter
network
and
of
then
trails.
two through
I
it.
realize that, but they're cars too. There
Not
are
on
cars.
not on the trails.
Well, not on the trails, but these are side streets. There's two of them. There's two side streets, and people do utilize them. To me, you're breaking up this good conductivity that you have by having these side streets, these two side streets in there. Because from Genesee all the way to Kemper Road, it's a long stretch. And if you're just going to have a little trail between them, I mean, that to me is not good planning. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just putting it out there. This is how I feel.
So just so you all know, the distance from Kemper to Genesee Street does comply with the land division ordinance regarding blocks and lots. So it is in compliance with the code without the side streets.
I appreciate the fact that eliminating those two streets eliminates 8 corner lots where the setbacks end up pushing people's backyards on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up with more of a space between the houses and the bigger backyards. That was the win I saw in that.
I like the green space too, the additional green space. That you're taking out a lot more hard surface.
And I did, just at the staff level, the fire chief was asked about removing those two streets, and he had no objection.
So we need to schedule a public hearing. All right, so let's do that. Are we ready for the next?
Can I
next month's
just?
meeting? Go ahead.
Sure.
And I do appreciate the comments.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of these conversations we've had and there's a lot of thought that went into this and the streets and creating some green space and giving a place for some water to get absorbed in during a rainstorm, things like that. Also, you know, there's a lot of trees out there. Some are dead and dying and will have to go away, but there's some really fantastic trees out there. So a lot of this has been worked in a lot of these lot lines and even the pass-throughs are to retain a lot of the trees. You know, the example I'll give is if you look at 15, lot 15 on this, it's a huge lot. There's an enormous oak tree there. And the reason that we've made that lot bigger is so we put the lot line in a place where that tree is safe. And we can protect it. So there's a lot of thought that's gone into this, and as we submit the plans and the tree plans and things like that, you're gonna see that we did very carefully start to try and put these pass-throughs and the lot lines at very strategic places to save a lot of the trees that are out there already. And it is a very flat property, and we're also having to manage the water out there. And so that's one of the reasons we also reduced the lot count, is so we could manage that water and create some retention on the west side of the property. That's where the water wants to go. So we've put a lot of thought into how do we make this usable for the community, a nice extension to the community, and still create a nice place for people to walk and move around and be able to walk downtown and use the space.
I'll just ask too, I know we've got the overview of the traffic report. Is that available someplace? So we can have that, maybe just post it or as an attachment to the next agenda or something, and not as a part of it?
All 80 or 100 pages?
I would like to see it. I'd like to see it. I don't want it in the agenda. I just want to be able to have access to it so I can see it, because it looks pretty comprehensive.
Here you go.
Can I have it?
Double-sided.
What I could do is, so we're gonna have to post a public hearing for his application. That if you go to the city's website, there's a link for public hearings and notices. Below the hearing application link, we could put traffic impact analysis. Does that work?
Yeah. It was just
Then it's available to the public.
in the community meetings, that was probably the number one issue raised.
You know, quick question, you mentioned the trees. It looks like bordering, like right on Wisconsin and St. John's, it's almost like the trees ring it, right? There's a lot of green in this. Do you foresee that a lot of those trees on the border get saved, or?
Are you talking about like on lot 15 there?
15 is down here in the corner.
I was looking more at the far west.
Far west. So there are some trees in that outlot that we're trying to save as well. There's some trees along the path on Wisconsin Avenue. Some of those will have to go just because the road is getting widened. And so some of those will come down. We do have a tree count, and that will be presented to the staff here and given to them, analyzing the trees that are not only sick and dying, but the ones that would have to be removed and the ones we would be saving. But some of those on the northwest, because of the road being widened, would have to go.
Okay, thanks. I'll make a motion to proceed with the public hearing on the 21st, did we say?
December 21st.
December 21st.
I'll second. It's Tim.
Right,
That was Dan.
And then Tim
Dan
seconded.
C.
Dan C.
Dan, that's true. Dan C. And Tim seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. We'll see you on the 21st.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now looking at 7D, DLC 0798953, unknown address south of 124 Genesee Street, owner Michelle Kelly, applicant Michelle and Michael Kelly, Applicant seeks feedback and scheduling of the public hearing for the plan development conditional use permit, site plan and appearance review, approval to accommodate a dental clinic. Come on up. Name it. Well, you guys know the routine.
Michelle Kelly.
Address.
Oh, for which one? Mine or personal? Or
Anyone you want to give.
We'll do 124 Genesee Street. I'm like, I own that one too.
Fred Carlson from Impact General.
And your address?
P.O. Box 132 in Oconomowoc.
You good with that? Good. All right, Amy.
Okay, so we've talked about this property quite a bit too. Just as a reminder, the city did recently amend the land use plan to go from residential to central business with a special use area 1. So there's some strict provisions that also apply. And then they are also, and the city created a new zoning district, CBD 4. So, and then the applicants came and they rezoned their property to CBD 4. So we've gotten through the land use plan and the rezone. And as part of that special use district and the zoning district requirements, they need a conditional use to operate a business. So now they are proposing their conditional use to operate the dental clinic that they are proposing, and they have their detailed site plans as part of the packet. Most of the packet that you saw online is accurate. They just made some minor adjustments to the I can't even see the change, to be honest.
Yeah.
And the building is white rather than they were originally maybe going to go with gray. So we can talk about that a little bit more, but I'll just start by kind of going through all of the different elements that they are proposing. So just starting with the site plan, the building size has changed a little bit. Hold on here, zoomed in too much. Okay, so, sorry, I'm having a hard time zooming in and out. The building's on the north side of the property. It's 4,080 square feet. It will be 1 story. The property itself is about 35,000 square feet. The building will comply with all of the setbacks of that CBD 4 district. There is a trash enclosure in the northeast corner of the building. And then there will also be, in the trash enclosure, you can kind of see is, we'll have a fence here, and I don't know, I can't
Should be
remember. Is
one
there
of
a
the
colored
views.
rendering?
PVC, yeah, it's a white PVC.
Okay, white
fence.
PVC fence.
6 foot with a 2 foot grid above it.
And then they have an easement that covers 80 feet of the southern side of the southern half of the property. So that entire parking lot is in the Webco easement, and so they have been talking to Webco. They're okay with the parking, and then landscaping, they do have to control the types of trees that they put in, so you can't be asking for taller trees than they put in their plan. They already had to modify their landscape plan to accommodate Webco. And then the proposed improvements with the parking lot and the building and sidewalk will consist of 12% floor area ratio and 45% impervious surfaces. That's far within the district requirements, so it's much lower than what would be allowed. They are willing to put this driveway in on the east side of the property. It does comply with the 25-foot setback from adjacent residential properties, and they'll record an easement that would allow an extension of that in the event adjacent properties to the north want to use it for access to their properties as well. And then, let's see, we have revised building plans. Well, so the revised building plans you have in your packet, I'm just going to put them on the screen so the public can see them. So you can see it has a pretty residential feel to it. The picture in the upper left is the south view, so that's what you would see from Poplar Path. That would be the entrance as people are coming from the parking lot going into the building. And then the picture in the top right is the west view, so that's the image from Genesee Street. In order to give that a little bit of a front facade, since that's where you're driving, there is also an entrance in that direction. One comment I did have, and I don't think I have it in my report, is it would be nice to see, and the Plan Commission can comment on this, maybe a sidewalk connection from the sidewalk on Genesee Street to that front entrance in case you have pedestrian traffic.
Are you talking about the one that you're on the
Right
Genesee?
here?
That's an employee entrance.
It's a what?
It's an employee entrance.
Oh,
It's an
employee
entrance
only.
into the building.
Okay, so you don't want people to be able to,
There'll be an access there for employees to come out, and there's like a little patio on the front where they can come and sit, or people can sit there. But for the most part, it's not an entrance for the building. The entrance is on the side on Poplar,
so people would just walk down Genesee, then Poplar, and come in?
or through the parking lot or the grass or whatever they're going to walk through.
Okay, so then the northwest view, which is the bottom left, that's the view that the adjacent properties are going to see. So they have, several windows and some landscaping. And then the bottom right picture is the southeast view. And then the building will consist of 40-year dimensional shingles and a combination of metal roofing. And then there'll be smart side, pre-finished soffit fascia siding materials. They are also proposing some limestone veneer at the base of portions of the building, and the color will be white is that the final color?
It's like a light gray limestone.
It's a what?
Like a light gray limestone.
Okay.
It's kind of like
but I mean the siding color?
Oh, the siding color's white.
And then there are interior plans in the packet as well. It's your typical dental clinic look, lots of space for patients. And then the landscape plan is attached. There's a combination of trees, shrub, and quite a few shrubs. And then they are placing 2 trees on the north side of Genesee Street. Again, they can't put in any trees on that south side along Genesee Street, except they are putting pear trees along Poplar Path. Those are a little bit of a shorter tree. And then pear trees on the north side too, to screen from the adjacent properties to the north. One comment I would have regarding landscaping is it would be nice to see some plantings on the far east side of the property to screen the parking lot from the neighbors.
Yeah, we're working on stormwater with staff right now, and they're looking at some retainage there that might
Okay.
make it difficult for landscape.
Okay.
So I got to see how that ends up.
Okay, and I can reach out to them tomorrow to just see if there's anything that would be appropriate then. Will there actually be a swale, or will it be
Well,
more of an
I-
infiltrate?
We're hoping to try to eliminate it and go back with our first grading plan where it's flatter, and then we could put some trees in there and some bushes.
Okay, and then the lighting plan is pretty minimal. They just have a few exterior wall lights and then one pole light. The pole light that I saw in the packet was 23 feet tall. I would say that's pretty tall for a property like this. I would think you could get away with something shorter. I don't know if that means more pole lights, but like the Seven Seas property, those were only 12 feet tall.
Yeah, our challenge is we can't put it in that utility easement on the south side. So I've got to put it to just that north side of the parking lot so I don't get any spread unless I get a little height to it. I mean, it's a cutoff fixture, but by raising it up a little, we can at least cover a little better on the parking lot.
Okay.
Because there's no streetlights on Poplar or anything, so.
Isn't there a street light right on the corner by the cemetery and their property?
I don't know.
I believe there is.
I don't think there is. The streetlight's down further towards the city more.
Since where?
The city more. Like they're on the sidewalk along the city, but they end at like the properties right before us. They don't hit that lot. Because I just went past there earlier and it was
I
like.
thought there was one right at that
I
intersection.
think you're talking about the ones that go on a wooden pole,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the decorative city streetlights.
Oh, in
Yeah, I
the
think there
actual
is one
cemetery?
at
Yeah.
that intersection, but
Right.
I was thinking it was on the cemetery side.
No, I think it's because that's a big corner. I
Yeah, I do
believe
think
it's
there's
right on
one
that
out
corner.
there.
There might be one there.
And our drive is to our far east end of the property.
Yeah, you wouldn't get
Yeah.
exit from there.
Okay.
So that pole, I mean, it does face mostly the cemetery, the school,
Yeah.
and the interstate, so I'm not sure it's that big of a deal. It's just a little tall for a
Right.
typical use, but
I agree.
that makes some sense that you can't put it in most of the parking lot, and you do want it to be safe.
Well, I'd rather have two smaller poles at each end of the parking lot than base, from on the north
The more
side.
you lower the pole, the smaller the
Cone
spread
of
gets
illumination.
on the fixture.
And they have an 80-foot deep, so his comment is the southern 80-foot of depth of the lot, they can't put a pole in.
Anything.
You can't
Oh,
go
that's right,
higher.
because of power lines. Power lines, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Forget about them.
I mean, we could drop it to 20, but
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's going to notice any negligible difference.
No.
Are these lights are going to be on all night?
No.
Okay. I mean, on the parking lot light. The building lights, I assume you'll have some of those on all night long.
I mean, I can.
Yeah, we'll put
For
those on
security
as we go.
reasons, but the parking lot, I'm wondering if you're
That'd
going to
be a
light that.
timer.
Okay.
It'd be on a timer.
Good, good.
You could make that a condition of the
Yeah.
CU too.
Because I'm dealing with light pollution right now because of that. So, because you're in a residential area, I would prefer that there were no lights when you're not there.
That's fine. I mean, for the most part, I would probably turn off.
Yeah. I
Most
can
of the
see on the
lights.
building because everybody lights their house a little bit, so, and it looks like a house,
Yeah.
so.
Okay,
Anyways, I was just gonna say, anything on the back of the building, I mean, that faces the homes behind us, we could always turn those off at night. I don't even know if we'd even have them on unless we were using them.
Yeah. Well, even that, if they're low level, because I have one in my driveway, it's a sodium vapor, and it's kind of that yellowish light, and
Yeah.
it's real low level.
So in the stormwater management plans are being reviewed by our engineering staff. They do believe that there won't be any necessary changes to the site plan or location of the building or anything, but they do have several comments and those are being worked through. The site is kind of challenging because there's a kettle on the adjacent property and there's a kettle on the subject property, and they are manipulating the drainage out here, so it does kind of impact where there's room to accommodate for stormwater management on a property like this. And then signage, they'll propose signage at a later date. They don't have that at this time. And so that's all I've got for you. If you're comfortable, you can schedule a hearing for December 21st.
Yeah, I think this is going to make a very nice entrance to the city, certainly in comparison to what's there now. And I just want to thank you for putting in the two blazed maples where you could put them that are not going to be a problem with the power lines, because some days those are going to be two very beautiful trees to help line that street.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. It is very nice looking. Very nice.
I put more in if I could, but I'm like, I can't put any more in there.
Motion to schedule public hearing on December 21st. Dan, Jay.
Bob will second.
You get that, Bob seconded it. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Passes. Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on to E. DELC 07989788505 North Latham Peak Road, DELC 07989799001 427 North Latham Peak Road, DLC 07988893001 532 Bleecker Street, DELC 07981670002 1014 Kenora Road, DLC 07989761016 Kenora Road, owner Barron Properties LLC, part of DLC 07989770001 333 North Latham Peak Road, owner American Legion American Legion Post, number 196. Applicant Jim Barron's applicant is requesting to present and discuss a preliminary concept plan for a 29-lot single-family subdivision. If you guys could all give us your name and address so we can get that out of the way.
I'm Richard Barron, 26.
Bring the mics up to your mouth so we can hear it.
Richard Barron, 2601 Nagawicca Road East, Heartland address, City of Delafield.
I'm sorry.
2601 Nagawicca Road East.
We're moving on to the next guy. We got you.
Robert Barron, address of 142 West Main Street in Wales.
Jim Barron, 757 Garrison Court, Delafield.
And Mark Elena from Elena Engineering, S9W, 31380 Irwin Court, Wales, Wisconsin. ELLENA.
Thank you very much. Amy, you want to give us an overview, please?
Okay, so the applicants are here to present a concept plan for a 29-lot, single-family subdivision. The property is, well, there's several properties actually, and they're shaded in blue on the screen for your reference. It's surrounded by the Legion, and you can see, so in the blue, just so you know, Barron's currently own this strip that I'm pointing to. I don't have that color coded because their intention is to transfer that land to the Legion and as a trade or whatever, whatever arrangement they're making, try to acquire this, this little strip on the western edge of the Legion. So they're trying to incorporate all of these different properties in order to create that 29-lot subdivision. The property is also east of Delafield Woods, if you want that as a reference. Their land division does require a rezone from the R3 single and two family district to the R4 single and two family district. So the R3 district requires a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet, but they could have 2 units per lot. And the R4 district allows a minimum of 7,900 square feet, which also allows 2 units per lot, but they are only proposing single family. So this property was part of the focus group recommendations, and the focus group did recommend unanimously to rezone this property to R4 and to actually include Delafield Woods to the west in the R4 district. Delafield Woods doesn't technically meet the R3 zoning requirements, and it does fit in the R4 district better. So that is one of the recommendations. Whether you do that or not should actually probably be discussed tonight, because that could be incorporated as on the same agenda or the same meeting nights as this proposal. Oh, okay, never mind. You should not discuss it tonight. We can talk about it next month. Let's see, what else? Okay, so the 29-lot subdivision, it would meet the R4 requirements without needing a plan unit development the way that they have it proposed, and they would propose to comply with all the regular dimensional standards as well. So the regular dimensional standards would require a 25-foot street setback or front yard setback, 10-foot side yards, and 10-foot rear yard setbacks. The proposal does require that transfer with the Legion. That complicates things a little bit because the Legion is in the institutional land use category and it operates under a conditional use with a legal description. So we'll have to work with the city attorney to determine whether or not they have to go through that formal land use amendment and amendment to a conditional use in order to make the transfer happen. As part of the proposal, and I'm going to go to the concept plan that you have at your seat is a little bit easier to read than the plan in the packet, because the plan in the packet is more of a civil type plan, so it's just a little bit easier. So with that plan, you can see there's several structures on the property. The ones that are dark gray are all going to be removed, and there are going to be two proposed lots will include the existing structures, or the existing structures will remain. In the way the property's laid out, those structures will comply with the zoning requirements, and we can have the building inspector verify floor area ratio, et cetera. The property will include a sidewalk on the north side of the road. And that sidewalk will meet the standards that are intended for the city's bicycle and pedestrian facilities implementation plan. There was a path in this vicinity, and this will help connect Parkway to, what is that, Lapham Peak Road. Is there anything else that the applicant would like to add before I go into some considerations for the Plan Commission?
Not really. You've done a pretty good job, but I guess I do want to make a few statements. This property is made up of 5 pieces that we own. That the first one was purchased in 1996, and our intention was to eventually do some kind of development here. It's been occupied. They've been occupied by renters. Some of them have been there 20 years. We originally purchased this property because it had a 60-foot access to Lapham Peak Road on the south side. And I know the city's street plan does call for Parkway to be connected to Lapham Peak. We always anticipated we'd be using the piece on the south side. Well, then about four years ago, we were able to buy John Weisling's property. And 20 years ago, we actually bought the piece out on Lapham Peak. And I have to say, as a defensive mood, thinking, well, if it ever happened, we'd have access. John Weisling's also has access on the north side with 60 feet, so you could conceivably run the road up there. So it wouldn't have, by us using this parcel here, it's almost a much better connection. And so we were able to talk to the Legion because they have been using, with our permission, some of this land to the south. And so the whole question on the conditional use, I'm not all that worried about it other than the mechanics, because the neighbors have already, they're using that as a park. And the area we're acquiring from them, they really don't use. And we just came up with a way to trade. Ironically, in the end, we don't absolutely need their land, but it does make nicer lots. So anyway, we laid this out, and I think it achieves all the public purposes, and that is that it makes this connection here. You mentioned having roads connect through. We try to avoid cul-de-sacs. DPW doesn't like to plow them. It costs more money. So from a policing and DPW standpoint, this is, I think, a good proposal. Improves storm. We've calculated all the stormwater aspects of this. One of the interesting things about this site is this is gonna. I don't like it when these developers grade everything and sell the topsoil and then bring it back. And I know that's what they have to do, but that's one of the complaints. We don't think we have to do it here because these grades, and that's why I gave our original survey. I gave you a copy. And the copy's been filed with the city, but it's not on the website. But these grades work so well that we can put in our retention and protection, most of it up in the northwest corner, and everything flows to that. And when we put the road in with storm sewer, we can pipe to that, and we can cut these lots in, and we don't have to cut the trees on the lots. There'll be some tree cutting. We know we have to do all that counting and replacement. And a lot of these lots are somewhat open already, but there'll be some lost when the houses are built too. But the site really works really well for what we're doing, and it addresses a lot of the issues. We've added some landscape islands at both entrances. At the east end, we have some big oaks we can save there. In the center, we have a big hickory we're trying to save. The islands cost us more than those trees. If we cut them down, we'd save money. We propose that the subdivision association will take responsibility, even though they're in the public right-of-way, they will be maintained by the association. And we would plant some additional trees in there. So if those trees were lost eventually, you'd have new ones growing also, because we're going to have to plant trees. But one of the efforts is to not have this as a fast thoroughfare, even though it is a thoroughfare, and that particularly impacts the subdivision to the west, because they're the ones that will if this road came across the south, they would have a lot more traffic. So I think this is more appealing to them. The connection to Lapham Peak is at another intersection. It somewhat lines up. When I say somewhat, it's just because of our island, we need to have the entrance maybe a little further north. But on Lapham Peak, you have all sorts of T intersections, and you really didn't need another one. So another one would have been south of the Legion or north through Weisling's original entrance. So that lines up, and I'm going to look down my list. Density-wise, we're proposing 29 lots in this area. With the acreage we have, that's about 0.47 acres per lot, which includes the road area. But if you go into Sanctuary at Delafield, that's 21 units on 11 acres. They're at 0.54 acres per lot. Delafield Woods to the west is 13 units on 6.7 acres, which includes the road. And this was the old way we used to keep track of things around here. So they're at 0.52 acres per unit. Delafield Commons is at 4.7 acres per unit, including the roads. We're at 0.47. These are all about half acre. That's where I'm kind of going. Actually, the new proposal at St. John's, which does not include the roads, so I want to be fair, you're about 25%, or 0.24 acres per lot. And I'm not picking on them, but it's just, so I feeling this proposal fits right in the neighborhood. In fact, it completes the neighborhood. The deed restrictions will be at least what Sanctuary has, and there'll be some modifications for new ideas. One new idea is that we're going to maybe consider lighting restrictions, because people have been putting brighter and brighter lights in their house, and so, but any ideas we'll take. One conflict I came up with, if you go even in Delafield Woods to R4, their houses are less than 25 feet to the right-of-way. So you still have some violations technically. We have 25 feet on everything here, and the only concern I have is on my first few lots coming in, if there was some way to have a setback that was less than that. But there's an easement, there are a number of easements on this site that will be eliminated. There's a gas line right now, and Amy mentioned this in her notes. That will be removed, that easement will be removed. There's some power lines, they have to go away. But the biggest one is a sewer easement that currently services our houses on Kenora. We propose to remove that sewer and remove the easement. We've actually considered going all the way back to Lapham Peak with it now after our discussion. So that's still under discussion. But I guess that's the point. The sidewalk is, we're going to propose to put it, have the association plow it. So if we have vacant lots, we will be, the whole 1,300 feet of sidewalk will be under one contract. They'll have to pay for it, but I think it'll be an amenity when we sell lots that someone doesn't have to worry about shoveling. And I guess that's my general comments. I think we'd like to see the rezoning, move forward and
So Kenora Road would need a formal vacation then?
No, Kenora is not a public road. It drives everyone nuts. It's on the GIS maps. Right now it's a 30-foot strip of land that we own.
Well, who's Mr. Kenora?
We don't know.
He might be offended by this.
John Weisling passed, so I don't know, but why it's Kenora Road, but it is, yes, it's on GIS, it's on Google Maps,
yeah, I've noticed that.
It's interesting, we were going to sign our tenants up the drive service, and I said, well, just wait to see if they drop off the things, because I bet they will.
Okay, so just a couple things to go through, as they move forward. So the land transfer may require an amendment to the land use plan and a conditional use permit on the Legion property. A certified survey map may be required to transfer the adjacent lands to get rid of the interior lot lines. Staff will need to review the existing structures on lots 4 and 7 just to ensure they comply with all the zoning requirements. So we'll have Scott do that. They'll meet all of the setbacks. It's a matter of the floor area ratio and any open space requirements that are there. Access will need to be provided to the outlots. We already talked to the applicant about this. They have several outlots that are isolated and surrounded by lots, so they need to somehow provide some access easements. And then we did ask the applicant to assess long-term tree health, just to ensure that if you look at the site, the road has a lot of meanders and these boulevards in order to protect the trees, and we just want to make sure that they can practically survive and that they're not going through all this extra effort if there's not enough space or enough health to begin with to make that effort worth it. And the applicant knows they have to submit a tree inventory. There are many trees out here and provide any mitigation as necessary. And then they are proposing to vacate the easements that Jim already mentioned, and that's in that red dash line on the survey. It does look like that it accommodates some ingress, egress, natural gas, and sewer. So we just need to work through that and make sure that there are no negative impacts to those vacations. And then stormwater management, lighting, landscaping, signage, and subdivision declaration of restrictions will all need to be reviewed as part of the process. But if they move forward, the way that they're proposing it would require the rezone, but not the plan unit development conditional use. So kind of similar to the Miller Marriott proposal. So with this, at this point, they're looking for feedback, and then they'll need to submit formal applications for to make those formal steps.
Well, I'd just like to thank you for all the work you've done with the Legion. They're by far your biggest neighbor, and with their letter, supporting your development plan, you've really done your homework to try to address your neighborhood issues, and thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I'd say too, thanks for the effort of working with the Legion on the land change and moving the road from what would be the easy way out.
We started out, that was going to be a big outlot, and I think it was a big problem, so.
Yeah, it like you said, it helps, it kills the prospect of a convenient cut through in front of the new development just to the west. That would have clearly been a traffic increaser for those people. But no, I think it looks great, and it's cobbling together, kind of leftover properties in a developed area. It looks like this is meant to be this way all along.
Yeah. I think it's a good plan.
So the road cross-section is the same as to the west, the lane width, the curb and gutter?
No.
No, it's different. It's hard to tell.
You got your work cut out for you over there at Public Works.
I hate to say you let the nose under the tent, but whatever it is, Mr. Seatman's roads have 12-foot lanes, and we're proposing to shrink it a little bit, and that's why I want a little island on the west end, so it makes them just a little bit narrower.
So you're transitioning at that island?
So.
And we did talk to the fire department, and they are assessing the narrowness and the curves and making sure they can get.
I'm curious how they pass on the corner of Parkway and Bleecker, because that ended up being a 90.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, as far as I know, these curves have been. This is our engineer.
Sure.
We're designed to the city's specs.
Sure.
This is curb and gutter. It will be mountable curb. I don't like mountable curb, but that's what you put into the west, and I'd like to continue it. We will require our people to cut driveways in there, though, because I don't like the bump.
Oh, sure.
So we're going to put that as one of the rules. The mountable does work, I guess, in the sense that in dry conditions, you can accommodate some parking a little easier and just jump up on the lawns.
And Dan, they are coming to Public Works in December.
In a week. And
Great.
we're coming there to just go through some of these things so that when we're drawing, we don't have to redo things.
Yeah, good.
That looks good.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be a really nice improvement for that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. like that it doesn't look cookie cutter. The lots.
I'm trying to.
They're all a little different.
I don't want this to be cookie cutter. I want it to feel like old Delafield.
Yeah.
But,
I think the islands, that'll really help give it that feel too of being more in the country.
well, someone mentioned Oak Street and trying to plant a tree in there. But
Yeah,
these-
that's what
these
came
do
to
have-
mind when I saw these.
They are big
Oak
enough.
Street.
They're big enough.
Yeah.
These are big enough, and they're
Right.
going to be curved. So
Yeah. Well, I think too, with having them, it'll slow down traffic too, which is nice.
what is that?
I said with having those islands, it kind of slows traffic down.
Oh yeah, and the sidewalk is shown at the lot line or behind the curb. If we run into some trees, we're going to do easements on lots, just like the city would do if they're building it. So that's going to be laid out when we find all the last trees. And we have measured the trees near the road right now, and we did shift the road proposal to save some trees already. But we know we'd be buying them if we didn't. So we did it for our own purposes. But
I think it's nice when you save the trees because a lot of subdivisions I come in, they're new and there's not a tree to be seen.
well,
You know,
there are some big ones in the
little
back, and there's some big ones that will be following the lot lines. They're just going to stay there.
Yeah.
So
Good. Good plan.
So I don't know when date. I mean, you're going to have to probably. I do agree with your comment. If you're going to add property to the public hearing, you have to talk about it next month. But
Yeah, so we have a meeting tomorrow, staff meeting, so we'll go through some of the land use plan amendment and the conditional use, and then we'll talk about the focus group recommendations. There were a couple of other things that applied to the downtown area. This was one of them, so we'll just talk about how we want to time that.
And if you don't like what staff comes up with, you can always change it.
Good.
okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to number 9, comprehensive plan zoning ordinance revision. Okay, let's go to 9A. Too many DLCs. Applicant, City of Delafield, provide feedback regarding amending the land use plan category from agricultural category to planned mixed use in accordance with economic development focus group recommendations and adopt a resolution for consideration by the Common Council. Amy, I'll let you start it off, but just for my own clarification, maybe it'll help others, is A the north side or the south side of the river?
A is the south side of the river.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so, hold on, I am trying to go to a map. So just a little summary. So based on the feedback at the last meeting and an internal meeting that was held with city staff, we discussed it at the last meeting that city staff should get together and take a look at the maps and the language that's been proposed. We decided to request, to break this request up into 2 separate parts. So we'll deal with the north side of the river and the south side of the river separately. This first agenda item is the south side of the river. And it does, both of them do include changes to the use provisions and the map boundaries. So we'll go over both of those. But also at the last meeting, there were a couple of other items that you wanted consideration of. One of them was to ask Nicole Riff with the Waukesha County Center for Growth if there are any other viable uses other than light industrial based on her reaching out to some developer contacts. And so her response to that was just that the site is not really ideal for corporate offices. It's just not locationally and post-pandemic, not a real strong use right now, or there's not a huge market for that. Medical offices and senior living are potential viable options, and the feedback from the developers regarding light industrial also continues to remain positive. You also wanted me to take a look at or reach out to DOT to see where ensure that we know where the available access points are on 83. They did provide some map information, and one of them is included in the packet. And you can see, so the red lines are where there are approved access points, and these are the same points that we've been talking about at several of the meetings. They're directly across the industrial park in Heartland. There is one additional black line that he added north of the river, but did say there's a lot of complications related to that potential point, resource limitations and topography and stuff. So really the red points
And it's a
are-
wetland.
Yeah, there's floodland, wetland, environmental corridor. So the red points are really your confirmed, approved, for sure, access points. And then there was an economic development scenario cost of community services study that was prepared just for this area. And it actually really wasn't specific to the acreages because they've been fluctuating so much with the boundaries of each, that the scenario was laid out for just 77 acres of each type of use, whether it be commercial, residential, industrial, just to give you an idea of the difference. So whether that's 70 acres, 100 acres, or 200 acres, I think the same idea applies. So residential was looked at as being 1 acre lots with an average value of $625,000. If that's higher, then you could incrementally increase this value. And then there's also sections for business park and commercial. So an applicant did bring up that there is a typo in the math regarding the tax revenue offset for residential. It looks like that may very well be the case. I should probably go back and just double check my number on that 160,000 for cost of services. But long story short, if the math is corrected, that's even a much more significant reduction in the value that residential provides compared to the commercial and industrial. So although, one interesting thing is that although a business park may have the lowest cost of community services out of these three categories, the assessed value or property value is not nearly as high as a regular commercial facility. So you'll see the value of commercial is actually really high. But once you incorporate the cost of services, the difference between a business park and commercial become much more minimal. And then the residential is significantly lower than the other two. So beyond that, going to the map and the uses for Area 3, which is south of the river. I'll start with the map, just to provide some orientation here. So the maps were cleaned up a little bit, and the division is matches the division between Oakwood Church and the park to the south. So it's a pretty even split, east and west. It may be a little bit wider on the east side, but then the west area is longer. It's a little bit longer at the river. So both portions do approximate at about 79 acres. And the area that's colored orange has been changed to limited business. So the use restrictions within that limited business are much more restrictive than what was previously presented. And then senior living is a conditional use or residential. And then on the west side, it used to be a transition from 4 units per acre down to 1 unit per acre. Now it's a half acre per unit to 1 acre per unit residential density. And in any case, areas that are residential are limited to 1 unit per 5 acre density. So there is some corridor on these properties so that density will be reduced in those natural resource areas. And then the use provisions themselves. So most of the language is the same, so I won't go through that. But the second paragraph regarding the specific uses allowed, it does state that business or senior living uses are preferred directly adjacent to Highway 83 in order to maximize economic benefit along a corridor with existing business park uses on the east side of 83, provided the development is compatible with surrounding properties. However, residential uses are an acceptable option provided the development can demonstrate an economic benefit to the city. Any limited business use within the special use area will need to be attractive and include an aesthetically pleasing mix of the following uses: So it's been modified to light-intensity business development, corporate office, headquarters and facilities, medical facilities, service uses with limited traffic, support facilities, retail that is incidental to an otherwise permitted uses. In the prohibited use, what's been added are the manufacturing, distribution or warehousing uses. So none of them are permitted on the south side of the river. And then processing of raw material for shipment in bulk form to be used in an industrial operation at another location. Retail, unless incidental to an otherwise permitted use. Repair services. Public restaurants, and if you did pass this resolution, I would ask that you add and fast food establishments. That was, I believe that was asked at the last meeting or in our staff meeting, and I did not put it in there. And then landscape contractor, masonry, plumbing, and similar type companies. The next paragraph I just want to point out, this was in the previous version, but that any residential development does need to incorporate components of a planned unit development with common open space buffers between the residential lots and adjacent properties. And then I also added that no public road access will be provided to Oakwood Road. That was recommended by one of the applicants at a previous meeting. It wasn't added because none of these properties abut Oakwood Road, but I did put it in there just in the event that somebody ever were to propose to go through the city park, since it is a public property, or try to make a change, it's in writing that we're not going to extend a road to Oakwood Road. And then just as a reminder, any existing business, agricultural, and residential use can remain as a conforming use.
So this process that we've been going through, just like the other ones, it's a give and take, right? We started out with the focus group recommendations. We've presented that to the public. We've had a couple different iterations, listening to the concerns that the public has. And in this case, you know, as in every case, we're trying to find that compromise, right? Where maybe we're not pleasing every single person, but we're doing our best to please the vast majority of them with the final land use and the things that affect land use. A couple of comments were made during discussion, and I'm talking just about this portion. It seems like we're getting, if we're not there, we sure are close to trying to strike that balance.
Does that line, aside from coming right off of the separation between the church and the park, is there property lines that make sense in there for individual parcels, or that's?
The property lines are actually the opposite
East-west.
direction.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So do
Okay.
you see that yellow faint line?
Yeah. Okay. Well,
This one goes like that. And they're held sometimes by multiple people.
So one of the provisions in here, and actually already in the comprehensive plan for planned mixed use, is a person can develop a part of or a whole property or multiple properties, but we would look at for a master plan of the whole site to at least know how roads might continue through, or how development might occur. So we would look for, even if somebody only chose to build on the east or west half, we would want to see the whole property master planned, is my point. I don't think it came out well.
So
When you consider the public comments over the last couple months, I think it feels safe to say that the southern piece is the easiest, given the current use, right? Because the folks that came here from Hirschman Lane would be those that would be affected by that. It seems to me, I'm just trying to remember, some of the most questions were from north of the Bark River. I'm kind of asking the commission.
On the southern one, the one that I stuck out in my head was that there was a concern about, wanting to be assured that they were going to have residential next to them, right? That was like their biggest number one concern. And by moving the line over, taking out the wording about moving the line, I think that really helps those people that had that as a real concern, and understand the cut through traffic, but that's hard to address at a land use stage. That's something we're really going to have to address when there's an applicant and when there's a proposal.
And I think we got to keep saying it. It's a land use move. There's still a whole nother process, and I think people have kind of lost that. But I live in this area. I am directly affected by this. The folks on Hirschman Lane are my neighbors. So I'm listening because I live there too. And for me, just to answer the question, I think this is a pretty good, and I'm speaking to the South because that's a pretty good compromise from my perspective.
I think one important thing to note is there was discussion about living on Hirschman Lane and being able to view out to 83 and the impact of that. And once this gets developed and you have, I think it's 79 acres of just single-family residential next to Hirschman Lane, that feel of what is happening on 83 is going to feel much, much further away than now looking through a farm field at some potential uses on 83. So they're going to have quite a buffer, a significant buffer of residential.
Well, and if we stay consistent with what we ask developers to do with green space and the things that we do, that it'll just even get better.
And the DOT's ingress and egress wouldn't even have to go through Hirschman, but potentially. So there's a whole bunch of options there.
So from my perspective, I think we beat, the South is the easiest one. I think we beat this one up pretty good. And it's just a land use move. And as I listened to a lot of people, there wasn't hardly anyone that said farm fields forever. Like everybody realized that at some point some things will change.
Yeah, I think and we can't, I don't want to lose this idea either when we go to the other property, but the big concern and something we always have to think about is, the people who are the stakeholders, the adjacent property owners, what's their reasonable expectation as far as what kind of development do they buy next to? Mm-hmm. And having this split like this, a lot of people on Hirschman, it's a really nice little private dead end. But I don't believe it's a reasonable expectation that was always going to be a dead-end road.
No, it was always going to go through. In all the years I've been here.
Many of them made that comment. They recognized.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
you're right.
They did. But so
credit.
the things were, they don't want to be a highway to industrial traffic or commercial traffic coming in and out. And we're killing that with some of the wording in here, and we're also providing the expectation that was going to be residential with this map as well. And that's, like Amy said, that amount of acreage it doesn't take much of a subdivision to buffer you from a road. And they'll fill up with homes and trees in a matter of a decade. So. But yeah, I agree with you too, Dan. This is a little more straightforward, I think, than the other one. And also, I know we had a comment on the potential business uses for the property abutting 83. And that's to be determined really with a good plan and what kind of mixed use would come our way and what kind of zoning would be proposed at that point. Mm-hmm. We're really stating we don't want a steel mill going in there. You know what I mean? We want something that's compatible with the neighboring properties. And they made a good point that across the street from them is an industrial park in Heartland. And then behind them would be a new subdivision, understanding that this would be developed into some sort of business use. So I think everyone's kind of we didn't exactly split the baby, but I think it makes sense.
Well, and the two property owners on the east have basically, from what I read, expressed support.
Have we had anybody come in expressing any interest in these lands for building?
The only informal discussion has been with Seatman's regarding senior living and residential on the southern lot. So that's not east-west.
Yeah,
south
I know where
half.
it is. I put everybody's acreage in their name.
Oh, yes.
I was kind of stunned that Lake Country School owns so much property in this area.
You mean Sela?
Or Sela.
Sela, not Lake
Sela.
Country School. Sela.
I got Lake Country. Lake Country has some up on the north end.
Oh, Lake Country, Is that Seatman? Is that the southern one?
Well, there's some owned by quite a bit is owned by Sela.
Sela, yes.
But over on where you have residential on the west
Yeah,
side,
that's Seatman's. That Lake Country, that's
that Lake Country, that's Seatman?
that's Seatman.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And he came in years ago with a proposal, if you're wondering
Yeah.
if the city, years ago, he had a proposal for a subdivision in.
Yes, and that was one of the reasons. This area had been zoned years ago. They could see, because it was agriculture, that agriculture can go residential. They figured there were going to be like 400 or more homes on all these lands. And that's why the city bought that park for $1 million.
I thought that was something to do with
No,
the building
I
we're
think
in.
with what was
The
going
public
on
safety
downtown
building and the
here.
We
building we're
needed
in.
a municipal
We had a-
lot, and so we needed to trade
Yeah,
land.
we need to
Right.
trade
It's a
land.
swap,
But
yeah.
this park was meant to service that area residents.
The park
Because they
maybe,
could
but the
see-
land was a swap.
They could see that, because I was at that meeting, they could see that with this many homes, that there would be a need for a park, and that's why they put it there.
I don't
was
know.
at that meeting.
It's a little trickier than that.
It could be, but still, it's land that we bought with the idea that it was going to be for citizens' use in the neighborhood. I do like the fact that you have all this now mapped out for residents here on the west side. The only thing is here, what I would prefer as a division between them would be a large boulevard with a road on each side. That would give them enough of a break from any kind of commercial or light industrial.
And when we get, if and when we get to the
Yeah.
next stage,
And I
mean,
realize that this is like updating your master plan. It's in the future. It's a possibility, and that's what we're working on. This is a possibility. It's not like we're dividing up the land and we're saying that you have this here and this here and here, because we don't know. I did check into, and I did find a lot of information. I did a lot of research this last week. 83. I found that the standard, and you can correct me because you work for DOT, standard lane width is 12 feet. And they measure from the edge to edge. Plus, there would be a medium, there would be 2 more lanes right away. And the standard is 12 feet, I know, for lanes. Overall, what I found out is that it's 104 feet with 4 lanes and a median. And I believe that's even with the right-of-way, but they didn't say what the right-of-way would be. So figure that's how much land is going to be taken up on this west side of 83. And I can see by looking at the map here, they evidently have plans to put the second lane when you get up here where the big swatch of land is. This here is going to be where it's going to go. They're going to take a little bit of that curve, I think, out of it.
We're on the north side.
Yep, north side. Because they have
No,
this,
The 2 lanes are supposed to go this way, and the
Yeah.
other 2 lanes down on this side, so it flips.
well, you can't put it this way because this is all brand new buildings. There's not
Well, you buy
enough.
right away.
They're going to go on the west side.
Okay,
There's not that many buildings, and they're very close to the road.
I've seen the plans,
Yeah.
but.
Oh, you have seen the plans?
Yeah,
They're going to
they
take
can
up
change,
buildings. All
but
right.
I don't think it's
Um,
worth getting into right now, the finite
No.
details of how all this is.
No, but
gonna
I know
play
it's
out.
104 feet.
It depends on your, the footprint of the road and how high it is, how low it is, your slope intercepts, how far
Right.
out. So you can't just pick one width and say it's going to be all that.
But 12 feet is the standard for lane.
It certainly is.
And it's going to require a medium. It's going to require right-of-ways on each side.
Medians can be very different in widths,
Well, if you look at 83 right now down by the church.
and that's substandard. You can't turn a decent vehicle around it, but we're digressing from
Yeah.
all this.
But anyways, it's going to greatly change, and I'm thinking that there are going to be buildings removed from this area too, with that expansion.
So with
But
the
I think it's
CSM
something we
that
need
was
to keep in mind.
approved, there was some additional right-of-way acquired, and it's about 112 feet wide. So I mean, usually they are variable
Yeah.
widths, but
So, yeah, The southern part, I don't have too much of a problem with, just that and that's the thing with maybe. You don't really know what's going to happen in the future. But I do like the fact that we have residential to the west because there's a bridle trail there, the park is there, the wetlands are there, close by, so I don't have a problem with the south side so much. But for me, everything's just a maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I like the layout of the south side.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
But I'm just not sure we're all going to be sitting here when something does happen. And that's what bothers me.
We're not the last.
do the best we can.
We're not the last. We're not the last smart, reasonable people.
Let's
Amy,
hope, let's
what
hope
is,
not.
what's the next
Let's
step
hope
we have
not.
to do then, Amy? Which is,
What's that?
we just have to approve
So
the
if-
resolution, or?
If you're comfortable, you can adopt the resolution, yes.
Adding fast food.
But now this is just for the south side, right?
Yep, just
Yep,
talking
so the
south
agenda
side.
item is
So we're
just-
going,
We split them into two parts. They're each going to live their own life.
there you go.
So you'd be adopting the resolution presented, including the prohibition of fast food establishments for consideration by Common Council. If it passes, I would notice a public hearing. There'd be a 30-day public hearing notice period before Common Council.
This will be January.
Okay.
So I live in the area. I'll stick my neck out so that people who disagree can come contact me. But I'll move that we adopt the resolution with the added piece about the fast food as drafted by Amy.
I live in the area, I'll second it, so he's not the only one.
Good.
Did
I'll
they
give
get
him
the
your
motion
address.
correct? Did they recommend to council?
I mean, I publicly say that anybody in that area, reach out to me, ask. I'll tell you what I think and why, and be open about it, so.
So it's the motion to adopt the resolution for consideration by Common Council. Just so the public knows, Common Council has to adopt an ordinance.
Right.
This is a resolution with the recommendation from Plan Commission,
With the prohibition of quick service restaurants.
with the prohibition of
See, you
fast
should
food
have done that.
establishments.
You sound so much better.
Too late.
Prohibition thrown in.
Are we comfortable over here on this side with the motion? We need anything restated, or we're feeling good? Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right. One down.
We're getting
Slowly but surely, we are getting through all of these. We don't have many left, just so you know. Not too many economic things left. Okay. We're now talking about the north side B. I'm not reading all those DLCs. Applicant, City of Delafield, provide feedback regarding amending the land use plan category from the agricultural category to planned mixed use in accordance with the Economic Development Focus Group recommendation and adopt a resolution for consideration by the Common Council. Amy?
Okay, so similar amendment to the map. The only real change in the special use language would be for you to add the prohibition of fast food establishments, but otherwise, the language on the north side is still including the light manufacturing and limited distribution and warehousing as permissible uses. So the north side does include uses that are a little bit more intense than on the south side. Then the map has been revised. The commercial area, or it's business, identified as business park / senior living, conditional use / residential, has been reduced in size. It's about 112 acres, whereas the area to the west of that is more significant than the business, being at 137 acres. This area on the northwest corner, it was all in the business park category. We stopped the boundary where the tree line is a steep slope. So that's just kind of preserving that steep slope and tree line. And then I don't know what would really happen up there, if it would be common open space to account for density or the open space requirements or what. And then the 1 acre density, this has actually been changed. So there was in this area, there was also a transition from 4 units per acre down to 2 acres per unit. And now it's 1 acre per unit for residential density, so a lower density residential buffer to that 2 acre per unit category, which is really intended to be just like a buffer, a quick transition zone from 2 acre to 1 acre. Same provision. Environmental corridors are limited to 1 unit per 5 acre anyway. There are also more significant wetlands and floodplains on this side. None of that's counted toward density at all. And the reason why at the last meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about only having business park right along the fringe of 83. The reason why there's a bubble is the idea would actually be to tuck the business park up and back by the railroad track, so it doesn't have so much of an impact along those residential properties. You could put quite a bit of buffering and a boulevard entrance or something like that.
So I think one of the key takeaways here is that the buffer zone is now adjacent to all of the residential properties, where before it was very close in some cases, but far away from others. The residential buffer zone has been, substantially increased along the whole area, which is, I think, a positive thing. We still have some concerns that I'm not sure if by moving it over far enough helped to alleviate some of those, or if it hasn't. With the a little more intense business use. It's a question to be determined. I am concerned about the predicament that Mr. Gerber would be in. I definitely would like to talk about that. I hear what he's saying. I don't know that I have a solution off the top of my head, but this is definitely more challenging, right? This is there's residential properties that are along Highway 83 to the very north that don't have a great plan. To slice them out makes the business park as a concept very difficult to implement. So it's more challenging up here, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what's challenging, right? We could do something and nothing would change for 10 years, possibly, right? On that, the gentleman's property, is that, if you can go back to that map, Amy, is his property
It's the south one.
That's what I was just trying to look for on GIS.
Yeah, why wouldn't we just draw the line?
That one, is it that one?
It's where the
Yeah.
it's where the road comes in.
I'll find it. It's
Right?
right here. It's the
Isn't that why?
square.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at the bottom of
there
that
it is.
orange, right?
It's the lower right-hand corner of the orange.
Yeah. So why wouldn't you just drive straight across and leave that part of the yellow?
So move that line up.
Then those 3 properties exclude them?
Put those 3
There's 3
properties in the
lots.
yellow.
Right.
Yeah, I
Two of the
wonder.
property owners who happen to be sitting here.
Why not do that, then, to help them out?
That can be part of your motion if so interested.
So you'd move that line to is
the-
that Campbell Trace?
Yeah.
North right here.
Yeah,
right?
that's Campbell Trace Road right there, correct? No?
No, that's a driveway.
It's the driveway up
It's
to
an
the 3
access
properties
road.
at the top of the
I'm
hill.
gonna go,
3727.
What is the name of that road? Does it not have a name?
it's a private road.
to the private driveway.
Through a long
Real long.
driveway through an agricultural field, but it would,
Yep. I've been up.
So
I would
then-
assume the line would just exclude
Yeah, to
these
go to
three
that
lots.
property line.
Yeah.
To me, this, we're kind of shrinking this down to an entirely speculative piece of property on a farm that they don't have an intention to sell.
I know.
Absolutely true.
And so, I mean, the land, should that time come, I mean, it'd be incumbent on him to do all the legwork, or them, to do all the legwork as far as how to optimize their value, city's value, master plan for the area. And how to appease the, I mean, there is 8 people in homes right there right now. And, you know, it'd be up to him to corral all those horses together and come up with a plan. I think us doing it, I don't think we'd fail if we left it alone, is my point.
But even if we move that line to the
You mean
north,
left the whole property alone?
That's what I'm saying, and maybe just entertain the idea that if someone wanted to come up with a way to develop a subdivision on that the yellow part on the south, in the southwest, that we'd work with them on what kind of density they wanted to figure out. You know,
And I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I just want to point out that just like the southern half, Seatman owns below the Bark River, Seatman owns the southern portion, and Celia owns the northern portion that butts the river. As we go north of the river, Celia owns the land adjacent to the river, and then Morris owns the land above it, right? So there are 2 different property owners there. One, for sure, at the very north, we believe has no interest in selling in any time in the near future. All I want to point out is Celia is more of a wild card.
Yeah.
Could be.
It's a big holding company.
but that's primarily designated on this map as residential, right?
Right.
Most of it. Yeah.
Most of it.
Most of it? Looks like all of it to me.
What,
Where's the
Seal
Celia
owns
property?
everything
Where's
along,
Seal?
I
south of
believe
that
it's
yellow
this,
line, right?
these two, so it's about half.
I can't
mean, there's
tell
a
where your
chunk
cursor
here.
is.
Seal is this.
They both have their hands in both
I'm gonna
colors.
go seal it.
Okay, they own a bunch of that.
And down below.
In that
Yeah.
map, both
And
of
down
them
below.
have
Yeah, I know that.
both colors in their property.
They own quite a bit.
Yes, that's right. They both have both colors.
It would have to be some sort of probably coordinated sale, right? Because it's even more granular than that because you have 2 different owners.
Yeah. Well, actually 3.
So that's the property line, that yellow
The yellow lines.
line.
The-
So, okay.
The little darker yellow
Gotcha.
lines.
Yeah, these I think are the
Okay,
property lines, aren't they?
One argument could be made that Celia has the opportunity to develop the land south of the river. Let's see what they do if the land use parts pass. And then at some time in the future, to Tim's point, maybe you address this in a different way or a different time. Because they do have an opportunity if we can move forward with the southern half, with Tim's idea leaving the northern half alone.
I would agree, because if we parse out the southern properties for Mr. Gerber and DeAugustini and such, start parsing out the ones to the northeast, I mean, to your point, Kent, we don't have much left. But I really feel uncomfortable leaving those people hanging, just because we don't know what it's going to look like. Like my cohort here, we live in this area, so we don't want to hear from all of our neighbors about the mistakes that we made.
So you're suggesting, Tim, just do nothing, leave it agriculture for now, and a year from now, somebody else can...
You know, I don't like punting, but I mean, I don't consider it a failure. We're not hearing an ideal situation, and we've got, you know, somebody's interested in selling their property, and the concern, we're adding doubt as to future uses. If we don't add that doubt, maybe it's not the optimal, like, hey, I could put in this business here, but the property owner could still petition for that at any point. So if we,
But you know the counter arguments that we said against that.
I know,
None of
I know.
them are perfect scenarios.
You know, I know. I don't know. I'd love to have a really cooperative major stakeholder and a landowner here with the motivation to come up, you know, says if this, then this is where I'd take this, and we don't have that. Like I said, I think this is way more speculative than the southern piece.
Ending up with a solution is underrated. I mean, no solution. It's not through
Yeah.
lack of work.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of work went into this. We collectively, a lot of work was put into this, coming up with, a non-solution. I think that's fine. I don't think that's a mistake at all. We tried. Seemed to make sense. Talking to people, listening to people.
I really feel like we're forcing something.
Yeah,
You know, it's
agreed.
like
Yeah. Like trying to give birth.
So there's never been any feedback from CELI at all? They've never,
We have reached out to
Really?
both of them, and we basically get no response other than one response is, I don't care what you do, just don't raise my taxes.
okay. We've heard that before.
That's why they rent it for farm.
Well, which goes back to part of some of these discussions is could we carve out a part of the city where, and I hate the word industrial because people immediately start to think of factories, right? But
Steel mills.
yeah, steel mills.
Smell.
But there was, that if you could find that area to do what we've been talking about with commercial, defined in a very tight window, it would certainly help the city's finances long term, right?
Potentially.
Yeah.
If the land goes for
and
sale.
if somebody would come and build and all that, all the if, right?
It gets back to the original concept. Can we help to generate interest by showing some flexibility in our land use plan? And if so, we've watched that affect various properties as we've worked around the city. This one just is the least obvious of the ones that we've come to so far, I think, in my opinion.
Do we have any place else in the city, if a developer with our definition of an industrial? Not really, right?
No.
between Dan's house and Lapham
I know
Peak.
why he's smiling. I've been thinking the same thing. There's 22 acres plus.
Right by Lapham Peak, that's where everyone wants to
It's
put
for
a
sale.
manufacturing plant, right?
Currently
Yeah.
available.
I thought that was the answer, but I wanted to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
That one has its challenges too. No sewer.
Lots of challenges. Wet
Water.
lands.
If that's commercial office only, that's not.
Yeah, right.
In a way, you're almost better off protecting it in a holding zone as agricultural until, if it becomes a four-way highway, then having restrictive business uses may not be as ideal at that time, where having more intense
Yeah.
uses may be completely appropriate when.
And it might drive property owners to say, okay, I want to do something different. I am going to move out, right? You never know.
Right.
The second the for sale sign goes on Morris's property, then maybe revisit, right? So-
Everything
Yeah, we can-
changes
We can
then.
punt this one.
I'm fine with that.
I'm okay with it too.
All right, so is there a consensus that we remove this from the agenda moving forward and move on with our lives, the north
I think
half?
so.
Okay.
Yes.
We tried, we really tried, right?
We did. But
Did I hear an objection, Mike? Was that?
No, I'm under the desk here. No, we're fine with it, absolutely.
Okay. Amy, you good? Can we move forward?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, so do you make a motion to formally withdraw this?
It's a city's application.
The area north of,
Well, we'd have to deny their application, right? I mean, it's the city, we're not, we're,
yeah.
This is the planning commission. The city was the applicant.
so we'd
It
be
might be,
making
it
this.
might be a nice official thing to put in the record, so
Yeah,
people know that we took an action
Agreed.
versus just kind of,
Letting
let's
us-
let's wait till it dies down 2 more months, we'll bring it up in February. Like, no, that's not what we're doing, right? We're kind of killing it.
For clarity, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
The first one Dan wants to make
Why
that
don't
motion.
you make the motion, and I can just say, I'll second. It's so much easier that way.
I'll make the motion, we remove this from the agenda.
And I will second that.
So you're denying the application and asking to have it be removed from future agendas. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that is correct.
That's what the second said too?
And I, Dan, will second that. Dan
So
C.
that was Mike with the motion and Dan C with the second. All right, is there any discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, number 10, report of city officials, planning commission meeting dates and deadlines. Regular meeting, December 21st, 2022. Number 2, regular meeting submittal deadline, November 30th, 2022. That's today. B, refer you to any correspondence that was in the packet. C, planner, any additional report?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, D, building inspector, no report. Seeing no further business, we are now adjourned at 9:54. Thank you, everyone.
Should have took the under.
So that was a smaller agenda that